know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Niko, and I'm joined by Alice.
Every time somebody asks me why I make decisions, I just answer, I don't know, I just hear a whisper in my ghost.
And Brian.
Hacking Alice's brain to find out if she's secretly on another podcast, only to find out she never existed in the first place. Shake my damn head.
I'm glad at this point you're just composing tweets at the beginning of our podcast.
They're the best.
This time around, we're discussing a vision of a cyberpunk dystopia so much cooler than the one we have now, Ghost in the Shell 1995. Let's launch into it. I've just been thinking a lot about how our planet is burning and we don't even have cool cyber bodies.
Yeah, dude.
We just have slop. We have AI slop. All right. Ghost in the Shell. The movie. Get. It was produced in 1995. It was directed by Mamoru.
Wait a minute.
Yeah?
Why are we talking about Ghosts in the Shell this year?
Get there,
What is
you
this year
stupid bitch.
Oh.
Look at the notes.
Wait, where's where you say it's the year? Okay.
Yeah.
Cut this out. I don't read the full notes.
I like the gesture towards my impotent power. So Ghost in the Shell was produced in 1995, directed by Mamoru Oshii, who we remember from completely fucking owning me vis-a-vis Birds. The birds are back. The birds are back. The birds are back.
And so much more.
And so much more. It was adapted from a screenplay by Kazunori Ito. The length of the media is a tight 83 minutes. Brian is dying.
Sorry, I don't have a cyborg throat.
We can speculate about the cyborg throat. There are a lot of familiar names in these credits, not the least of which being Shoji Kawamori, friend of the show, as part of the technical design team.
Father of the show.
Father of the show. And both Yoko Kanno and Kenji Kawai on music. Like, both of them are here. It's all-star
Murderer's
season.
row of people involved in this one.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So this movie is based on a manga by Masamune Shiro, which originally ran starting in 1989. This manga and the film went on to inspire many subsequent series and spin-offs, which we'll be covering throughout 2025 as part of our Year in the Shell.
Year in the Shell.
We don't have to time it. I feel like Metal Gear had a special energy. Anyway, yeah, so last year we had the Metal Gear. That was kind of our theme that we were doing. We went through all of the Metal Gear Solid installments that matter. Fuck you, Alice. Peace Walker is out of there. I'm kidding.
No, I want you to read this entire copy you've written. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
I'm glad we came to the conclusion that Rising is more important than Peace Walker.
I'm so mad, but I also agree.
So yeah, with the Metal Gear, we got to explore ideas about mechs in future battlefields. Mechs is the next step in the nuclear arms race, and mechs is kind of the harmful legacy of past generations. But with the Year in the Shell, I think we're going to be leaning hard into mechs' body, transhumanism.
Yeah. To what degree is an artificial body like piloted by a consciousness?
Yeah. And certain questions about AI for sure, which are already raised in this film. So
yeah, get
hyped. We're going to be talking a lot of Ghost in the Shell this year. All right. What did y'all know about the Ghost in the Shell 1995 film before we chose to cover it?
I mean, I've watched this like 70 times probably. I've read the manga. I've consumed all of Ghost in the Shell. I love this one. It's not my favorite of the Ghost in the Shell franchise, but I keep coming back to it because it is so tight, it hits so well, and you can be really high and just sit on a couch while this is playing and experience so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. Bri?
Yeah, this is, I've also seen this 900 times. I also am like extremely Ghost in the Shell pilled. I think this is very, like, War in the Pocket. It is to Ghost in the Shell as a franchise what War in the Pocket is to Gundam as a franchise. And what I mean by that is like, it just, like Alice said, it's really tight. It is extremely self-contained, and it hits all of the themes like bam, 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 one after another, extremely artfully. This is like one of my favorite movies. It looks and sounds so amazing. I will never get sick of it. I love this fucking movie. I'm so glad I got to watch it for the pod.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite movie-going experiences in the last 5 years was my local AMC was screening Ghost in the Shell. Check your local movie theater listings. They will periodically just screen, like, a lot of them do Ghibli films, but every once in a while they'll just like screen a classic anime movie, and often dual language, like you can kind of pick your showtime. So I got to see it in the original Japanese with subtitles in the theater, and it was an incredible experience. Like having that audio wash over you in a theater is crazy.
Because a lot of indie theaters will do anime showings, especially when like milestones happen. So like, for example, with the new Gundam 30th anniversary stuff coming out and 50th anniversary stuff or whatever we're on.
They were
There's too
screening
much Gundam.
G-Savior.
No, they were screening the original, but I recently saw this in the theater because my local theater was screening it before the ScarJo one came out. What a whiplash!
Yeah, I watched this on Tubi because it's free on Tubi, and the flavor text on Tubi is like heart-wrenching because it's basically just talking about the ScarJo one.
Oh, that's rough.
It's like, watch this now before watching the live action starring Scarlett Johansson. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also find this on YouTube free with ads. It's one of the few places you can actually watch it in Japanese with subtitles. I think on Prime
Wait,
you can only watch
what?
it in English. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing's free on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish somebody had told me that like a week ago when I was
we
talking
needed you to
about this.
report on the dub.
Neither of you fucking said anything, but okay.
No, we need you to report on the dub.
I watched it on Prime Video. Sorry, everyone.
Why aren't you a person of the people? Anyway,
I can't believe I'm the dub correspondent. Like, we're in the Twilight Zone. Anyway.
I
important.
watched the dub and the sub before we did this.
Alice is ready. Alice is bilingual. That's what being bilingual is.
That's what.
Is that what it means?
Yes. But you know what's funny?
God.
So this year, this year in the shell, ostensibly I am hosting it, which is a very funny thing because out of the three of us, this is the only Ghost in the Shell thing I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. So,
This will be really fun then.
but I am the designated robot fucker. I love questions about AI and consciousness and transhumanism. Cyberpunk is one of my favorite genres. I'm definitely William Gibson pilled. I own most of his books. So I'm excited to get a little bit more of, because there's a funny thing with cyberpunk, especially in the West, where it reflects a lot of Western anxieties about Japan. I'm excited to get more into cyberpunk media through Ghost in the Shell from a Japanese perspective, and like kind of see the other
really
side.
interesting, right? Because I think that there are a lot of anxieties that match up here, but they are from a Japanese perspective, and like Japan as a nation in this movie isn't a hypothetical like future fictional situation, but I just think the anxieties at play are depicted in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Especially in a lot of the long form portions of the Ghost franchise, you really get a pretty good dive into like a lot of the neuroses of the Japanese people, especially with refugee crises and global panics and things like that, in a way that's like, you get it in this movie too. There's a lot of discourse about, nation crafting, and that comes up in the series in really cool ways.
Well, and there is a refugee crisis happening kind of in the background.
Yeah.
Actively.
So
I think really exciting for me. I think for me and Brian, Ghost in the Shell, I can probably say this, is formative for my love of mecha, which is weird to say because we'll get into it. There's, in this movie, not a lot of mecha, or is there, question mark? I don't know.
We'll talk about
really
it.
love it. Yeah, mechanically, this does a lot for me in the same way Pat Labor did.
Yes, totally agree. Yeah. What happened here? What happened in this film?
What happened in this film?
This
Well,
motion picture.
in the distant, far-off fantasy year of 2029. Can you believe that's like one Trump presidency away from us?
I know.
I can't believe he and Elon are going to get the cyber bodies going. Oh, I'm sorry to everyone that I brought that up. Anyway, in the distant year of 2029, technology has advanced to the point that cybernetic enhancements are relatively common, and even full bodies, called shells, can be manufactured to house human brain matter. In this future, we meet a woman who has had one such completely cybernetic body replacement, Major Motoko Kusanagi of the government agency Section 9. In the first mission we see, the Major has been enlisted by Section 6 to assassinate a foreign official to prevent the defection of a prominent computer programmer. Then Section 9's focus shifts to a case that seems unrelated, as another official's interpreter is ghost hacked, with a hacker known as the Puppet Master trying to seize her being through her cybernetics and use her to assassinate key officials. Puppet Master leaves a trail of ghost-hacked people to grapple with their compromised minds in his wake as Section 9 pursues him. Then, Section 9 comes into custody of a shell manufactured apparently out of the blue, and which fled its factory only to be struck down on the highway. The Major is fascinated by initial analysis that suggests that despite the shell containing no human brain matter, there's evidence of a ghost or personhood. When Section 6 comes sniffing, the shell activates, reveals itself to be Puppet Master, but also reveals that it is a program, an experimental project of the government. Section 6 has been doing all it can to prevent escaping their custody. When Section 9's facility is breached and Puppet Master is kidnapped, Section 9's squad gives chase, leading to the Major facing off one-on-one against a spider-like tank mech defending Puppet Master. The Major almost destroys herself in her quest to connect with Puppet Master before it's destroyed or falls into another group's hands. She's saved by a squad mate who also helps facilitate her connecting directly to the mind of Puppet Master, which leads to a discussion of what it means to exist and experience life, and a final, life-altering choice for the Major. And with that, we're going to head to the break. Hey, Niko here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show.
Excuse you, he has a name and it's Bato,
know,
and he's the ultimate wife guy of all time for a woman who will never be his wife.
He's such a wife guy.
Sometimes you need an ambiguously romantic ride or die.
Hit you one. I want to read some of the taglines just right up top because I find them amazing. People love machines in 2029 AD.
I don't feel like that's the
you?
impression I got.
Who are you? Who slips into my robot body and whispers to my ghost?
That's
Great.
a cool tagline.
It found its voice. Now it needs a body.
Hot.
Yeah, boy.
Buddy.
That seems like it could have been like a tagline for Alien. Its voice is just screaming.
Hey, I want to clarify something right up the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't do the assassination for Section 6.
I thought she did. Did I get that wrong?
No. Section 6 was trying to arrest him because it was part of their play. She was assassinating it on the behest of the Prime Minister.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I get for not copying the summary directly from Wikipedia.
I want to get something way more important out of the way from the beginning,
Yes.
which is that the goons in this first case have fucking sick guns that unfold from suitcases.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Briefcase
Shit,
gun.
okay. Can we talk about goons and Ghost in the Shell? Okay, this whole room with the digital screen aquariums, there's so much, guys.
Yeah. So,
Is this a Yuri aquarium scene?
I don't know that this one qualifies. Now, Yuri is everywhere, like the love of God, but...
Puppet Master and the Major are Yuri. We can agree on that, right?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Cyborgs transcend gender, but it's still Yuri.
yeah. It's if you're transcending your body, it's also T for T.
Mm-hmm.
There
I was
you
about
go.
to say, we're going to get into some transgenderism with the ghost in the ear.
Yeah.
Ear and the ghost.
Ghost in the shared shell ghost.
My year is a ghost. No, I was just gonna say, I mean, when the movie opens, we open on a really... This movie does ambiance and setting, like creation, extremely beautifully.
This, where Oshi is has his foot on the fucking gas all the way to the floor throughout the whole. This is so Oshi pilled. He's doing
So
everything he can
Oshi-pilled.
to make sure we know it's him.
It's really
Okay.
good.
We got to talk about the sweeping shot over the sci-fi city, starting with a computer monitor. Or are we talking about the creation of the unit in the factory?
Oh,
Which
no,
one are
we'll
we
get
starting
there.
with?
That's the shelling
Okay.
sequence. We'll get there.
So fucking the crappy CGI like robot screen into actual helicopters, and then the fucking music. Holy shit. Let's get some
Yeah,
chorus in here.
I guess this is an interesting production note to talk about. So there are two versions of this film that exist, right? There's the original that came out, and then there's Ghost in the Shell 2.0, which is when they revisited it and tried to update the CGI. I'm not sure what versions that y'all watched. I know I watched the original, and I have to say there is such a charmingness to 90s like CGI before it
We
got like
have to go
shiny
back.
and weird. Like
We have to go back.
it's so
this
chunky
movie looks
and
so
like
good.
it looks really good. But I don't know what 2.0 looks like. I haven't watched 2.0, so I don't know what that animation
It's
looks
fine.
like.
I think the charm of this original one really is worth not watching the 2.0 because I really don't think. I mean, whatever, the director was in on it, and it does, feel like it, but
Yeah.
it's just a charm to this.
I think the one that my dad owned was 2.0. That was the one I watched first. And like my memory is that the differences are actually very minimal because 2.0 didn't actually come out that long after. Like 2.0 is still like early aughts CG when it's CG. So like it's not that much of an improvement.
Yeah. So I'm always utterly charmed by 90s CGI. But that leads us into that sweeping cityscape as Alice mentioned, and honing in on the Major as she listens in on a conversation.
She's spying on goons.
We learned so much so quickly
Oh, yeah.
about what this means. And here's something that I really like about this. This movie trusts its audience in a way that you don't see in modern movies. She is having she's listening in, she's tapped in, and then she's also having a conversation with somebody, all just at the same time in the network. And we just get shots of her just sitting there. There's no like pop-ups of her talking to people. It's
Yeah,
just
there's no
happening.
cutaways. Yeah.
It's her sitting there and talking in her head. It's so good.
I want to talk about the Major a little bit because this is going to come up a lot for us as we do this year. Each iteration of Ghost in the Shell, I think, characterizes her a little bit differently, and she looks a little bit different in all of them. I like this one a lot because she has like a smarminess and a sass to her that I like. There's a sense in like her facial expressions and some of the stuff she does that like she's kind of enjoying what she's doing. And I think like even though Standalone Complex is like my favorite iteration, that is a much more self-serious and gloomy Major. And so like it was very nice to come back to this one. I believe the general agreement is that the sassier the sassier she is, the closer to the original manga run in that spirit is. So
That's interesting.
But also she wears sunglasses at night.
You
Yes.
know what? That's what you gotta do. If you're in a cyberpunk dystopia, you gotta get them sunglasses on. Does
she
not
wears
matter what time of day.
sunglasses and she also wears an Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, all of the sci-fi tech in the Ghost franchise is like my favorite kind of chunky sci-fi.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
is
we've
so
definitely
good.
got cassette futurism going on here. We've got a little bit of what does the future look like through a retro lens, which is extremely cool. And it cannot be said enough that I think Ghost in the Shell is absolutely a cornerstone of what we think of now as like the cyberpunk aesthetic and the cyberpunk genre. Like with everything else you may count into it, Snow Crash, William Gibson, like whatever else you want to count into it in terms of like aesthetics and especially what influences artists who do cyberpunk design, like this movie specifically, and I'm sure the subsequent media, but like this specifically is foundational.
Well, I mean, the Wachowskis specifically cite this movie as their inspiration for The Matrix, the original Matrix.
Which makes total sense.
And the Cyberpunk 2077 developers also cited this. Like, it is so like core to a lot of people. Something I also want to shout out early on as we're going into this, especially with the music and the wide city shots, it is so obvious that this came 2 years after Pat Labor 2. That this was his next, well, he did something in between, but this is his next feature production. Oshii just really dialed in on what that was into the futuristic part of it, and I really love that.
Yeah, I really do think we're seeing kind of our method pay off, at least in the sense of like watching Pat Labor 2 early, we're getting to see kind of the influences here. Whereas if we'd done them vice versa, I think we would have been trying to work backwards.
I think he had a lot of fun. I mean, Pat Labor is so much more grounded in like our reality.
Yes.
And so to have these like extremely long sweeping shots of like this like totally abandoned like ghetto cityscape, like cyberpunk hell, while Kenji Kawai and Yoko Kanno played in the background, like I could watch an entire movie of just these shots.
Yeah, they're really,
it's really
good.
cool because something reading the production notes for this and everything, like this is set in Tokyo in the manga, and in the movie they kind of change it so Tokyo has a Hong Kong feel. And these sweeping shots of these like Hong Kong canals with shops and everything and like dilapidated areas outside of the city core.
Yeah.
So good. Also,
totally abandoned.
Why is sci-fi in Japan obsessed with an artificial island in Tokyo Bay? Why does this keep happening?
I think sea level places are like in constant peril. I mean, you read about that airport in Japan that is like in danger of becoming inoperable. So
I
like
hadn't heard about this, but it makes sense.
There's a water top airport in Japan that is like they don't know what to do because it's sinking like very quickly.
Faster. They thought eventually it would settle, and it just keeps sinking.
Yeah.
Me, honestly, relatable. No, I'm kidding.
So with the first of the iconic major jump off a building with a rope.
Yes.
We see this forever in the series, but
This is her favorite thing to do.
guys, you can have a skin tight suit and it does not have to be skin tone. I just want to be very clear. It doesn't have to let your nipples show through. You don't have to wear stockings.
I definitely think obviously there's a gaze here that's happening, but I also think that this is interesting because I was kind of measuring my reactions. Like we talked about with the Metal Gear, I have very strong feelings about how women are perceived. And sorry, the cat needs to leave. Hold on one sec.
I'm gonna say while she's doing that I agree. I think the institutionalization of anime has kind of softened the sexualization here, just like by comparison with a lot of the other stuff that's going on in the genre.
Yes.
But like it is important to remember that so much of this movie is men drawing tits. And I think one of the interesting things about like Standalone Complex being a TV production is that like they're not allowed to show her nipples all the time. Like she's in combat armor a lot more. But like without the weird nakedness, like you don't get the drawing of her ripping herself apart at the end, which like I would trade that for anything.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I was kind of gauging my own response to it, and like part of it was, I think on my first viewing of the film, I was kind of rolling my eyes at like, oh, here's titties. But having seen it before and kind of understanding the major situation, for me, I was able to be at more of a remove and think about like, there's a definite feeling throughout this that the major feels disconnected from her body. And like, just like brazenly being willing to just walk around and just not care about who's seeing you. It could be brazenness, but it also just could be like a total disconnect from bodily connection and feeling, like a total disconnect from any idea of that being something private because your body has been manufactured. And I don't know, I was definitely more in tune with that. So it really didn't bug me in the way that it often does in anime. And I think it helps that like, while all of this is lovingly animated, it's not Gynax bounce lovingly animated. A lot of it is about form and about what the major is doing and about like an artistic expression. And it feels a little bit less like it's there to titillate, even though there are.
I do think the camera's doing a lot of like, I don't know, like we don't get shots from like underneath and in between her legs or like, you know, it's stuff like that really pushes it over the edge. So
yeah,
it doesn't, the camera doesn't do that. And I think we won't get into it too much, but from the manga, because this is an adaptation, a very truncated adaptation, it was very specific that they cut out a lot of the sexualization from the manga. And I think specifically with the Major in this, like, she makes an effort into how she dresses, but also it's always functional. Like, the Major sees her body as an extension of clothing, I feel like. And that's a running thing that I really like.
That's a really good quote from you, I think.
She chooses a female form. Generally, that's her preference, but it's just another piece of clothing. Who cares if you see my robo titties?
Yeah, there's a definite feeling, and we'll touch on this repeatedly, but there's a definite feeling that, like, the Major herself is hardware. Especially anytime she lands anywhere, they really emphasize how much the shell weighs, because she breaks concrete and paving under her. I love it.
Every time it happens.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Standalone Complex that is, like, extremely about this. I cannot wait. It's like one of the best scenes in all of anime.
So we meet the Major on this rooftop listening into this conversation because, as is emphasized in kind of the opening, like, text of the movie, there's literally a little bit of text at the beginning. The March of the Future is kind of changing how nationalism works, but there are still nations and there are still borders. And what the Major is interrupting is an attempted defection by a prominent programmer named Daito. Or Daita? I'm trying to remember. I think it's Daita. He is trying to defect, and she is interrupting it. And that's such an interesting... Like, this is coming pretty close off the heels of the end of the Cold War. Defections were definitely more in the minds of people when we had, like, really strongly opposed nation states, and you really were picking a side when you moved from one place to the other. But in terms of people trying to immigrate and trying to move to a different country under auspicious or inauspicious circumstances, whether you are a defector or whether you are a refugee, is something that's really interesting in this movie.
Yeah, I think when you're telling a story about something that's this big, you have to you have to tell it by using small parts. Otherwise, it just becomes unachievable as a story. And so, like, the degree to which this is interested in, like, what nations as entities in the world owe each other and what that means to individuals who are boiled down and exist within their systems is going to be something that continually comes up in the franchise. And I think, like, this opening is, like, literally a perfect way to illustrate that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the Major interrupts this potential defection and meeting.
No. I want to go back. So I want to read the specific quote because it is the thesis of Ghost in the Shell. Well, one of the many theses, which is, in the near future, corporate networks reach out to the stars. Electrons and light flow throughout the universe. The advance of computerization, however, has not yet wiped out nations and ethnic groups. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important in this. The net is so pervasive in this, and also you can say
that the net is vast and infinite. You can say it.
The net is vast and infinite, Mato. But the weaponization is not in guns anymore. It's in who can make the best program to get past firewalls to hack, who is the best hacker, because as people become cyberized, that's how you control the future. I think it's really cool that a nerdy programmer is somebody that you have to stop from going to America.
Well, yeah, and, like, I think the way that bleeds into things like gender and race are like such, they're so interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting, like, if I'm thinking about Gibson stuff, Gibson was a lot more interested in corporate defections because he was thinking about the future as more corporate polities having more control. And so there was serious issues of poaching employees. And I think it's interesting that, like, again, like, looking at this from the Japanese side, it's less a fear of corporatization and more a fear of, like, what do the influence and how do the relationships between nation states cause complications? I just think that's an interesting perspective shift.
And also how the advantages and dangers of being constantly connected to each other and having our thoughts and memories accessible to others.
It's wild that this predates social media.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, so the Major interrupts this potential defection in one of the most cool, dramatic fucking sequences ever animated. Like, I can't imagine we are broadcasting this to someone who hasn't seen Ghost in the Shell, but if you haven't seen Ghost in the Shell,
Right.
check it out. Yeah, so it's a truly iconic sequence as this takes place, but then it leads into possibly a more iconic sequence, the shelling sequence. So we start the credits and we see the creation of this artificial body, the shell. It is incredibly beautifully animated. It is breathtakingly animated.
With the most fucking what's the bitches who does the music?
Yoko Kanno.
Yoko Kanno.
Holy shit. Them Shinto bells, the everything that goes over this, the birth of a body.
The Shinto bells, the choral like arrangement.
I do think it's really interesting to contrast this with something like Blade Runner, where we were seeing like heavy synth to suggest the future. This film definitely seems to rely more on like the visuals give you that, and a lot of the music evokes like more ancient styles of singing and like older styles, more vocal styles.
It's really interesting because like I couldn't help but think about Akira, which does a lot of the same stuff with its soundtrack. And like I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or not, but it fucking hits. Like synth is obvious and good and like it's fine, but like there is nothing like the soundtrack.
Is really cool.
Yeah.
It is really cool. So yeah, we go through the shelling sequence. We see the body being put together from initial scans to being literally skinned and then eventually colorized. And yeah,
it's really cool how it's a birthing sequence, right? Like when she breaches, when the shell breaches the water to get the cerakoting on it or whatever. It's so iconic. And then the like curling up into the ball to be dropped in. And I love how there's no talking during this. All of the engineers are just watching readout screens. It's fully automated. Like the mega factories are just able to pump out a shell like that. It's so cool.
I think we should also bookmark a lot of the imagery here because a lot of it is going to get like problematized by the Major's diving sequence later. Which I just like there's a again Oshii doing this to me, like there's a visual like contrast and like mirroring that's happening when it comes to how the Major like chooses to experience like the things that make her think about the crisis she's having.
Yep. Can we talk about, so this came up when I was watching this with somebody, and so when they make the shell has nipples, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
However, the shell also has a mound on the bottom. Just a mound, just a pelvic mound, a pubis mound.
A Barbie mound.
Do you think, because the idea of it having nipples and the fact that this is a female shell and we all know what society would do with these, do you think this is a situation like when you buy a rifle where you just need the firing pin to make it fully automatic? Do you buy the shell and you just need the pussy attachment to make it fully functioning?
No, I think this is an issue of visual censoring. Like, I don't think they were going to show that.
I agree. I was going to say there's two answers to this. The first answer is just like, I think they probably just weren't allowed to draw pussy lips. And then I think the second thing is that like there is a like I said Barbie mound on purpose. Like there is going to be a lot of like doll imagery comparison as the franchise goes on. But yeah, I do think it's just like there is a I don't know. We have as a global society, I think everyone has this strangeness where it's like tits, great. We'll all love to draw tits. We all love to draw panties. But like when it comes to the actual like realistic anatomy, for some reason we're very shy.
Yeah.
My other thought on this is it has to be a specific model. Like it's an upgrade on a car you have to select. She's like, I'm not going to use that.
Like when you buy a 4Runner and a lot of the buttons on the radio are blank and you have to buy the aftermarket stereo in order to program those buttons. Okay.
That's exactly what this is like.
Yeah.
I think I'm never going to have sex in this body where I need that. So.
Okay.
I think an interesting counterpoint to something like this is a film like Air Doll. I forget who directed that, but Duna Bay stars in it. And it's about a blow-up doll that basically attains sentience.
Hey, if you're like someone who's kind of scared of dolls, don't Google this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and close that tab.
But yeah, no, that was a film that is about a blow-up doll, a literal object made for sex that gains sentience, and I think that is something that I would definitely always put into conversation anytime you're going to talk about artificial intelligence and why we create new, like, why synthetic beings are created. I think Air Doll is in the conversation when it comes to the dislocation of desire. But I do think the Major definitely is a sexy figure, but a sexless figure in an interesting way. I find that compelling in an interesting way. But it was something I noted, but then like the rest of the shelling sequence is so visually compelling that it's just kind of like I just moved on.
If that creeps you out, there is a recent from this year, Subservience, also deals with this.
Oh yeah, I'm watching that on Christmas.
Pretty much, if you are interested in like robotic shows, there's so many different humans deals with this. Mithrigan doesn't really deal with
Stop.
this.
Okay.
Mithrigan, you bitch.
We should talk about Section 9 because these are characters that these are mainstay characters for the whole franchise.
Anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about the squad.
Boys, we got to talk about them.
So we have the Major, and then we
Let's
have
just through 'em. Major Kusanagi.
Major
Call her by her goddamn
Motoko
Christian
Kusanagi. Then we have Chief Aramaki, the gorilla. This is a nickname. He calls himself this.
Yeah, you can't call yourself a nickname. Come on, man.
Chief is one of the two humans
Yeah.
in
Yes.
Section 9. Who's Kusanagi's assigned male wife?
That would be Bato, who is one of my favorite guys of all time. Like, I don't have
love
a lot
Bato.
of like gender envy. I kind of have Bato gender envy.
I love his special eyes.
Yes.
I just to go back, I want to do a quick dub correspondence thing.
dub correspondent.
Which is to
Dub
say that
correspondence.
William Frederick Knight, who voices Chief Aramaki, continues to voice him in every single installment of Ghost in the Shell. He, to me, who watched Standalone Complex on Toonami or on Adult Swim, I don't remember. He is Chief Aramaki. And so like I loved to hear him. Alice, he also voices Dr. Minovsky in Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin.
Wait, that's him?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, when I heard his voice again, it's so comforting because he exists in every Ghost in the Shell to just lore dump politics at the audience. And
He stands
so
with his
good.
hands behind his back in an elevator while the cyberpunk happens in the background and talks about politics. That's his whole job.
I feel so bad he had to do the voice for SAC 2045.
And then Bato is voiced by an anime guy of all time, an anime dub guy of all time. I'm looking for it.
Epcar?
Richard Epcar. He's Raiden in Mortal Kombat. He's Ansem in Kingdom Hearts. Like one of the guys of all time.
I hate that
and
was
then-
the poll that made me. I'm like, oh, Ansem? You mean
And
Ansem?
then oddly enough, the Kusanagi voice actress, she did some small things, but this is it.
Yeah,
Which is odd.
Her name is Mimi Woods. I have some notes about her performance in this movie.
Brian has some notes for her.
When we get to Standalone Complex, they move to Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, and that is the Major to me. She does an incredible job.
Okay.
But
Now-
Mimi Woods is okay.
Her Japanese VA, Atsuko Tanaka, is iconic. She
Yeah,
I
has
believe
was
that.
thinking that.
so much and plays the Major, you'll never guess, a lot.
I always think this is interesting when something gets initially cast, especially in this time period as things are being brought over and dubbed, but there isn't like a huge voice actor industrial complex yet. Like there
Yeah.
aren't like known names. We saw this with Metal Gear Solid 1. It was just kind of like people were taking on pseudonyms because they didn't know if this was going to be good or bad for their career. I think there's still like a lot of
Totally.
experimentation happening with early
And
dub.
The American voice acting and dubbing industry has gone through such a change in the last 30 years.
It's so
Yeah.
fascinating to me because no matter how much Mass Effect I play, Jennifer Hale will be Dr. Naomi Hunter to me. But like every time I see like a TikTok of her, like people call her Shepard. Like in real life, everyone calls her Shepard.
It is such an iconic performance. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just- that was why I because I came at it backwards and I came to Metal Gear Solid after Mass Effect. I was like, oh my God, that's FemShep. That's the commander. But
I'm
yeah.
of the mindset of just calling it Shepard because who gives a fuck about male Shep in this essay?
Male ship erasure. But yeah, rest of the squad. We have remaining members of the squad.
We have Togusa.
Yeah.
This is
Wife guy number 2, but his wife actually loves him.
But his wife exists. This is our family man. He's the
Has
other human.
a couple of kids. He's literally just there like, I gotta make a good life for my kids.
Yeah, he got
I
poached
love
from the
Togusa.
police force, and the
Yeah.
major points out later it was specifically so that they didn't hyper specialize into people who were all like augmented or who all were like spooks as a career move.
Yeah. And
he also loves his revolver, which I love that
The Mataba,
Yeah.
my queen.
his revolver versus the automatics. Like, I think that's such an interesting, funny microcosm of the rest of the themes of this movie.
we got to talk about his hair, his like Farrah Fawcett
He
hair.
has a mullet, and I love it for him. And you know what? I'm glad it's coming back. I'm glad we're bringing mullets back. It's time.
But yeah, he does like the beat cop on foot analog detective shit. He rules. I love Togusa.
yeah.
He has real Val Kilmer vibes from Heat. Real ones know. But I also want to, I love that he uses a revolver. Gun facts, automatics jam, and if you don't practice clearing them, it can suck. But with a revolver, if it doesn't fire, you just go to the next bullet.
This is something that we talk about extensively in the Metal Year. But Togusa is functional and takes his job seriously and doesn't spend 90 minutes twirling things. So
Yeah.
that's
The
a
real
W for him.
revolver ocelot.
And we do get more people in the other series, but the other guy is Ishikawa.
Yeah, Ishikawa is kind of a figure in the background for most of this movie, and then I think he has like one scene where you see him.
He's got a couple scenes. He is the hacker guy. He's
Hacker man.
I think that one of the mecha things that we're going to talk about is like, so he in this movie he operates basically just out of one room, and he has this humongous cyber apparatus that he like puts on to do hacking.
Me locking into posts.
You got to jack in.
In Standalone Complex, they put this whole apparatus in a truck so that he can travel around. That is a mech to me.
Van life. But yeah, so the squad is in pursuit of
There's one other very important member of Section 9.
Yeah.
Office lady robots.
Yeah, there's 3 office lady
I'm
robots who are
obsessed
identical.
with them, with their little fingies. They're all full robots, which is the best part.
Even if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Ghost in the Shell, I guarantee you've seen the GIF of the fingers separating into a million fingers and typing a bunch. That is the office ladies. They have a weird like red situation room that Aramaki goes to sometimes where they like are doing things.
They're doing secretarial work extremely fast.
Secretary outfits. They have headsets, even though they like. Look, I love where this show where the whole series shines is where they go. What can be done that has to be tactile and physical versus what is just digital. Like, why do they need to type on a computer if they're robots?
Who knows?
Because it looks cool and it whips. Sorry,
Why do they need to
unfortunately.
speak into microphones if they can just transmit a voice file?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so that's our squad in Section 9, and they are in pursuit of the Puppet Master after an interpreter for a diplomat is compromised. So she has been ghost hacked, a concept which is horrifying and incredibly cool by turns. If you have cybernetics that directly interface with your brain, which seems incredibly common, even to Gusa, they mention he is the most minimally modified, but he does have some kind of neural connection. The major mentions that first thing. And so, like, that's considered a minimal modification. And, like, that opens you up to hacking. Which is horrifying. I think...
How is she being hacked? Because they're on the case. They have to chase
being
down
hacked
this hacker.
with a deprecated virus, the HA3 virus, the HA3 virus.
Why would you use an old virus and not something more cutting edge?
Alice is just always out here to like question me.
She's like pop quizzing you.
I know.
These are,
always.
No, these are actual lines from the movie. Is they question it?
Well, and this is the subject of debate, though, right? Like Kusanagi, like talks about this, like it could be a fake out, it could just be like a style thing. I don't think we get like a firm answer on why Puppet Master chose to do this.
I think we have a sort of answer by the end, but yeah, I do think it's still really open to interpretation. But one of the things that's interesting, I really want to focus on the ghost hacking. This is when we first really get our idea of what a ghost is, and it's like your personhood, your memories.
Right.
This shit fucks me up, man.
Yeah, your essential self that is now connected digitally and can be modified by an outside actor. And so this woman has been ghost hacked, and they're tracking how this hack is being performed. And part of the way it's being performed is there's a garbage man going to like data pay phones, one of the coolest cassette futurist little elements in this setting.
It fucking whips ass.
Yeah, he's functionally using pay phones, and like it reminds me of when they used to have touch tone telephone hackers, and like if you were you would have that confiscated if you were convicted.
These scummy garbage men have some of the best like character interplay. Like this when I said Oshi had his foot on the pedal, like this is such Oshi shit. Though their chemistry and the way they talk like is incredible.
Yeah.
One of them is just like a wife guy who's obsessed with his wife and wants to hack his wife because he thinks she's having an affair, and the other one could not give less of a shit about this.
He just wants to get his job done.
Yeah, this is one of our earliest lines, like gesturing to a refugee crisis, because he mentions the wife guy keeps hopping out to use the phones, and he's running these data cards, and apparently he's using this to do a long distance hack. He thinks he is hacking his wife. But the guy who's riding with him mentions that his previous partner had issues with the immigration office. Apparently he was an illegal immigrant, but he did his work, and so he's like resentful of the new guy. Way better
than this guy. Yeah.
He's kind of resentful of the new guy, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. You know, it's an interesting element. That's our first kind of exposure to like the fact that there are illegal immigrants and refugees in this way.
Alice, you said earlier that there's a lot in this movie that really trusts its viewer. I think one of the coolest things that you can kind of pick out if you're looking in this is he tries to show his coworker, the wife guy tries to show his coworker a picture of his wife and daughter, and the coworker is so disinterested that he won't look. And we later find out that that is not a picture of his wife and child who do not exist.
Yeah.
And so like it's just a very cool moment.
This is so, it's such a the sell of this is so perfectly done. And if you haven't watched the movie, like, yeah, the way he talks about it's like, oh, you wouldn't understand, you don't have kids. Like, he's selling it. And then the interrogation scene where they're basically like, your memories are all false. You're not a real person anymore. Like, you've lost, like, in the interrogation scene, they basically say, there's no recovering from what's happened to you.
Yeah.
You will never get
They
that
don't
back.
have the
They
technology.
overwrote your memories.
It's just horrifying. Like,
Yeah.
Horrifying.
But yeah, so Section 9 is picking up these pings at these payphones and is tracking back the HA3 hack that's happening to this happening. And they identify eventually that, oh, it's the garbage men on this route. And they're trying to isolate him. And the guy mentions that there was a guy in a bar he met who set him up to do this hack, who really helped him out. And so he accelerates to try to warn the guy, because they're supposed to rendezvous, apparently. And that is when Section 9 gets into a straight-up firefight with the second actor, who seems to be... initially, he's positioned as you think he is the puppet master.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a figure they're pursuing after the garbage man, who is armed and leads them on this crazy, fantastic, cool chase throughout the city.
So fucking cool.
Anime is good, actually. This
Yeah,
is
anime
the
is
like
good.
I think this entire movie is really good. This is like this and maybe the ending are like the two peaks to me. This sequence is absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, they chase him through the city. They chase him into a market. He has active thermal camo, which is something that the Major has.
Only certain sections have access to that because it's military hardware.
Mm-hmm. And so as they're pursuing him, there's all sorts of visual stuff happening. They're pursuing him on foot. They're trying to corner him. Leading up
Bato
to
has to use his specialized to find him in a market at one point.
Oh, that part is so good. There's a lot of this. And then, like, Major is running to cut him off. I want to give mad props to the weapons in this scene. A++, high velocity rounds, not a real thing.
But I like the idea that Bato is critiquing this guy because he's like, what the hell are you doing? You are making your weapon disposable because high velocity rounds warp the barrel of this gun and it makes it unusable. And that again speaks to what we find out, which this guy as well, who Major has a really cool showdown in a shallow puddle of water, has an incredibly cool fight.
Absolutely beats his ass.
Yeah. while invisible. So much of this
It's
fight
so
happens while she's
good.
invisible. It is really cool.
They go to a desolate part. He counts his bullets. She is invisible, and they do this a few times with the active camo of like using water spray and other things to break the processing power. I just love this, except for the little weird face thing that comes from her mask. I don't like that part of the active
veil.
camo.
It never comes up again, but I like it as a concept.
I kind of like it too.
Other
but yeah.
highlight of the scene, Bato puts his jacket on the Major. I think that's cute.
I think it is.
He,
cute.
like,
There are several times where Bato is like, "Please cover your titties," and it's
Exactly.
like he's viewing her body in a way that she isn't viewing her body,
She
which is
doesn't give a
Precisely.
shit being
Yeah.
out here, titties out, cold and wet.
He cannot help himself. I feel like he does this like 3 times.
it's really good. They come to find out when they're interrogating their suspects that this guy was brain hacked too. This guy was an immigrant. He was picked up on a few criminal charges in the past, but he was also ghost hacked. He doesn't
Yeah, he's
remember
just
his
empty.
mother's face. He doesn't remember
Yeah.
any of this. His memories have been emptied
He literally
out.
says, "I'm not gonna tell you anything," and Bato says, "It wouldn't be worthwhile. You don't even remember your goddamn name."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way his face is animated as Bato says this to him, and as the Major asks follow-up questions like, do you remember your mother's name and face? Do you remember this? And he is realizing he doesn't because he's been operating in the moment. He hasn't been worrying about previous memory. This and the Garbage Man are just like haunting. Like oh my God.
I think to tie this into like the subject matter of the podcast too, like I think the movie makes a really compelling argument for the idea that like humans are collections of unreliable information. And when you interrogate that relationship the way the Puppet Master does, like we talked about this in the Counterweight episode, which is to say that like multiple bodies are being piloted by an artificial consciousness in a very mecha way to me. So
Yeah, it reminds
yeah.
me, Brian, I know that you have recently started the Imperial Radich, I think it's Radchai. Anyway. Yeah, the series by Ann Leckie, starting with Ancillary Justice. This reminds me a lot of how ancillaries are made, which is a horrifying sequence. I do think that that's interesting.
People
bring
should
in
read that,
here.
by the way. It actively blew my fucking brain out my tits.
It's an exceptional book, an exceptional series.
Yeah.
But that was the note I wanted to tie together. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if he uses high velocity rounds with this gun. It's disposable. He's disposable. Like,
Yep, he
it's
isn't thinking
really,
about
it's a
that.
really cool echo.
Hey,
Yeah.
we need to talk about the most important scene in this movie, which happens on a boat.
Yes.
We need
are
more
back
boat
on
chat.
boats.
Hey, Brian, you
The
talked
boats
about
are back.
bookending earlier. Tell me what the Major is up to.
So the Major's doing that thing from Synduality.
That's exactly what it was.
Yep.
No, so we talked about how like one of the things that the Major deals with as like a staple of her character is that she feels disconnected from her body. She does kind of different and increasingly strange things to sort of ruminate on this disconnect, and one of those things is doing like a diving maneuver, which is very dangerous because her body weighs like 9 million pounds and she could just like sink to the bottom of the ocean and be stuck there forever.
Because she
And-
still does need to breathe.
Right.
Air must be intaked into the cyborg body.
Intaked, correct. I think that the movie knows that and employs Kusanagi to show that you can be like a capable person and still capable and put together and like competent person and still not know anything about like what makes you who you are. And so like one of the things that the franchise does very well is we get a little bit, but we don't ever really get a solid backstory on Kusanagi. She's very biography agnostic, and that's very on purpose because we're supposed to be thinking about like where she comes from and if that makes her different than anybody else. And so like when we get this imagery that's kind of suborned by the imagery of the body being put together at the beginning, and she's like kind of curled up, and she has to have Bato like winch tow her body back up to the surface.
When she breaches the water, it's in the same look as the breach
And
of
this specific visual where her reflection is on the underside of the surface of the water, and she touches and breaches her own reflection. Beautifully animated, first of all. Second of all, I was just like, the themes, the symbolism, like, it's just good.
Yeah. I want to do it now. I want to have the conversation because we can't get into this year without having the conversation, right? About consciousness and what it means to be alive. So,
can I just read a quote here? Right, I think it'll be relevant to what you're about to say. Bato asks her why she does this, and she says, "When I float weightless to the surface, I imagine I'm becoming someone else."
Yeah.
So she has a talk with Bato. She tells Bato he didn't need to be here, and he's like, "You could die down there if somebody isn't here to watch for you." And she's like, "If it happens," classic Major. But they have a discussion on what it means to be self. And Major points out, and this is something that we get into in the series, and I'm trying to focus just on this version of it, which is the cyber brain. The cyber brain is a human brain put into a cyber shell. The only way that shell is ever opened is if you are fully unconscious and a technician's working on it. And the Major talks about this because she says, you know, her entire body is cybernetic except for the flesh in her brain. And she says to Bato, "Have you ever seen the tissue in your brain? Do you know that there is a brain in the shell?"
I think that discussion happens later in the elevator, but they are starting to talk about it here.
Yeah.
Well, and importantly, what they do talk about here is that Section 9 owns their bodies. And that if they ever quit their jobs, it would be really difficult to piece together what and who they would be afterwards.
Because they'd have to give up so much of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we are a mecha podcast. And I want to talk about I'll just be upfront. I think that the Major has a soul or a ghost. I think a ghost in Ghost in the Shell is a metaphor for a soul, because the ghost is not something you can really, like, you can hack a ghost, but a ghost is just the essence of a living being, which we'll get into with Project 2501 eventually. But for now, in the concept of the Major. In either case, if the Major does have a human brain or not, she has a ghost, in my opinion. And I believe that the ghost is piloting this shell or her cyborg body. So and as we go through this entire year, I'm looking at this at the eye that in cases like this is a mecha. She is piloting a mecha. Her brain goes in different places, and sometimes she leaves her body. It's not always functional. And we even see her swap bodies in this one in particular. And I think as we discuss this, I want to know your guys' opinions on what a ghost is and how a ghost interacts with a cybernetic body in this series. And we can start with just this one, but I really want to know, Brian, where you're at.
My feeling is that I think we're all three agreed on this. I think this is like what brought this to the podcast. I think that because the idea is, and I think that this gets extrapolated more and more, but like the idea is that like while the ghost can be, while your personality can be erased and your memories can be altered and like there are countless ingredients that make up the human body and mind. The ghost is something immutable that makes you a human being. It is not necessarily, it is connected to, but it is not necessarily your personality or your memories. I agree with Alice. It is a soul-like substance that only becomes important in the context of this universe because of the fact that bodies have become artificial and so much has become accessible to someone at a keyboard. And so that's what fascinates me about it. And then also, of course, Kusanagi, the Puppet Master in this sequence, says, "What we see now is a dim image in a mirror. We will soon see face to face." And he says this using Kusanagi's voice and mouth.
It's wild that this kind of like subtle hack is already happening. Yeah, this connection over the net.
And she has one line in this that I really like, and this is from a trans perspective, which is, "I feel confined, only free to expand myself within boundaries." And I love that for Major Kusanagi. Transition in your own way, everybody.
I think this is interesting because we have discussed in the past the idea of mechs as idealized selves. And in that situation, we're kind of looking more at like mechs as a vehicle that is cool, and so it is cool to use it. A little bit like somebody having a midlife crisis and buying a really cool car. Like there is a certain extent that like, oh, my ideal self is a person who drives this kind of car, and when people look at this car, they have an idea about who I am, right? So there's that element. But I think where you get more into the mech as the body is when you are reliant on the mech to interface with the world in a way that like, yeah. Sorry, you're cracking up. I didn't know if
No, I'm cracking up because of the thing you said about the midlife crisis, and my first thought was like, has a midlife crisis and becomes Adam Smasher.
Yeah. But like legitimately, like I think we definitely see it in American culture, if only to speak to our culture, just like an abhorrence of the appearance of aging and an abhorrence of death in a way that like this is pushing technologies for people. And I mean, for the most part, it's like obsession with skincare routines and using your son as a blood bag or whatever the fuck. But like, you can see how this would get technical and how people would want to preserve their idealized self forever. And that is an interesting place because it's like when that is elective, that is one thing. But this scene where Major Kusanagi lays out, like, we have to go in for regular maintenance. We can't just split. She couldn't just take off and try to live as a renegade because she needs regular maintenance. And like the ending of this movie just is a little jump ahead. Her future is very uncertain, not the least of which because it's like, oh, where is regular maintenance going to come from? Like, yeah.
I think one of the things, just to also touch on our canon as a podcast too, is like one of the things that's mentioned here, and it makes me think of All You Need Is Kill, which is just that like this level of augmentation actually doesn't exist a lot of the time in other countries because Japan's the only place that has the right technicians to service and maintain and create those bodies, which is like the same thing as Japan being the only place that makes good, I forget what they're called in All You Need Is Kill, but good mechs.
Good like processing chips and things like that.
Jackets.
Yeah. So they have this sequence where they're out at night. This is another sequence where the Major just casually gets undressed and Bato is a little bashful about it, which is very cute. They also have a very funny moment where they're drinking.
So baby girl.
Yeah, Bato is baby girl.
Bato is out here. Also, hey, I always love how they're always drinking and the Major just calls it out like, our bodies could just process these and we won't feel drunk. So like,
yeah, they're just drinking for the love of the game. Here. But they're technically on call, is my understanding, and they're just like having some beers because they can just clear it from their system in a second. We can be drunk
and immediately when we're done, it's bringing us back to sensuality noir. They had to use nanomachines to do this with a patch.
Machines.
Well, like, or one of my favorite things in Star Trek, too, is they have a bar on the spaceship called 10 Forward, and the bar sells what's called synthahol, which gets you drunk, but apparently it's like advanced space alcohol, and if you're drunk and there's an emergency and you need to not be drunk anymore, you can just not be drunk anymore if you want.
You just turn it off. It's like when I got too high and I got scared and I was like, what if I just channeled my mental powers and turned this off? It didn't work for me, but apparently in Star Trek they figured it out.
So we get like a 15-minute sequence of just Oshi shit. What's happening?
Commuting, and we are seeing the city.
Well, the Major's commuting, and then at the same time, what's happening is the body, the puppet master body, has escaped the factory and is kind of wandering around before getting hit by a truck.
There's one specific shot in this that I think is very important to the Ghost franchise, which is as she's on this boat, she looks up and
she thinks she sees herself.
She sees herself because it's a mass manufactured body. I could not deal with somebody looking like, sorry, twins. I would die if there were just other people that looked exactly like me out there.
There is the extremely dogshit movie The Creator from 2023, I think, actually does something really interesting where people can donate their likenesses. And it plays with, to a completely undeveloped and underwhelming degree, it plays with the idea of there being many people who look the same in society, and like there are posters that are soliciting people to donate their likenesses so that they can increase the variety of the likenesses. I think that's a really interesting idea. That movie is so bad. Please do not watch that movie. I'm so glad it doesn't have Mechs in it, so I couldn't put it on the calendar and inflict it on y'all.
Yeah, so you're a newborn. What's the first thing that you do?
Get hit by a truck.
Get hit by a truck.
Yeah.
Go play the road.
Do you think Project 2501 wanted to be isekai'd into like an overlord?
Project
or a
2501
ReZero?
wanted to go to Escaflowne.
So yeah, a shell has been manufactured. It goes wandering. It is hit in the street. A completely nude woman is struck in the street. And her shell is brought back to Section 9.
Hey, Niko.
Yeah.
Do you recognize this shell?
It looks really similar to the Major. Like, their eyes are the same for sure.
Do you know who it also reminds you of? The
Who?
Interpreter.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
They all have the same face claim. They do. Yeah.
But I want to point out just like a really cool visual thing, which is that when this body gets hit by a truck, we see like a bunch of like data stream imagery. And as it pans out, it looks exactly like a fingerprint. It looks really, really good. It's so cool.
It's really cool. But yeah, so the Major is like really fascinated by this shell because they've done scans and it's like there's no human brain matter in this thing, but there's evidence in the backup brain. That's my understanding, that there is a ghost in here. So the Major's like, let me in there, Chief. I gotta dive. I love that the language used here is the same as diving. She's like, I want to connect to that thing. Don't let anybody else do it before me. But the Major has to head out, and Section 6 shows up and is like, we're fucking taking custody of this shit.
Section 6 shows up with a damn Yankee.
Yeah.
Okay, but before that, my favorite line spoken about Major Kusanagi is afterwards. She's like, "I'm diving in. No one else is diving in." And the boss is like, "Why are you late? You shouldn't be late. I'm gonna put you." And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna dive in." And as she leaves, it just says, "She's moody today." To the response from Togusa, "Isn't she always?"
Yeah.
And I also
women.
think I love this line too, because one of the things that's also said in the vicinity of this scene is the Major says the only thing that makes me feel human is the way I'm treated, and like it is extremely human for your coworkers to resent your bullshit attitude when you come in late to work.
Yeah, it's really funny.
When you're putting a half-destroyed robot onto a machine so that you can interrogate it, should you make it look like an angel on a cross with a halo around its head?
Probably.
Oh, you gotta.
Probably.
I love the trailing wires. I love the obvious distinction between when they first boot the shell up, they've removed the hands only, which is a really horrifying image. And then later they remove like the entire lower body and the arms, so it's just a torso and head.
There is an incredibly scary thing that happens here, which is while the Section 6 people are in the room, the body like wakes up and looks at them, and nobody notices, but the camera notices. And I really remember
good.
being little and like watching that and being like, "Hey, no!"
Horrifying.
Yeah. So Puppet Master activates the shell and is like, I am a thing called Project 2501. I am a different type of organism. And I am seeking asylum, basically.
I love this because coming off the Metal Year, the Puppet Master says, "I am not an AI. My codename is Project 2501. I'm a living, thinking entity created in the sea of information," which is
The sea of
an AI.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It is really funny. I do think it's an interesting distinction. I think the distinction it's trying to make is that it evolved.
Yes.
It was not, and like to an extent, I think it is a little bit disingenuous to say that it was not crafted in any way, but it is asserting that it evolved as opposed to, I think, artificial intelligences, which it would assert were designed.
And yeah, I think it's actually extremely sad, and like it really pulled at my heartstrings when it says like, "I demand asylum."
Why in Japan though? Because there's no death penalty.
Because there's no death penalty. Yeah,
Because it's been used for assassinations. It's been used as a tool to irrevocably damage people with ghost hacking. Like it's specifically trying to make sure that it isn't killed before its time.
So
And then-
in this,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna
No,
say, while this is happening, we get why Togus is here, which is that he notices that the elevator doors close like
This whole
0.3
thing.
seconds too
Thomas
late.
is just doing some good ass detective work.
He's just a good detective.
Want to say, I love that they don't have good enough cameras in the parking lot to like pick up optic camo, but they have pressure plates under every parking spot.
Yeah. And so he clocks, he's like, technically only the head of Section 6 and his Yankee entered, but the doors took a while to close behind them, and normally they snap shut the moment you've cleared it, which would scare the shit out of me, but...
In its plea for amnesty and, getting out of this, it drops one of my favorite lines. There's two lines that the Puppet Master drops that I really love. The when does AI become life? Can you offer me proof of your existence? How can you, when neither modern science nor philosophy can explain what life is?
Oh,
Damn.
I love this. Okay, it's time for me to open the year in the shell. Sorry.
Wait, I want to
Brian,
read
really
the second
quickly.
part of this quote
Yeah.
real quick before you do
Yeah.
that. It says, what you are experiencing now is an act of free will. I demand asylum. Memory cannot be defined, but it defines mankind. Humanity has underestimated the consequences of computerization.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Because our memory does define us. It's like
Yeah.
why losing memory is such a fearful thing. That's who we are, right?
So this is something I want to open, because like we are going to be talking about AI a lot during this year. We're going to be talking about artificial consciousness and reuse consciousness as we talk about things that are mechs but are bodies, and how a pilot might be transferred. Like, this is all going to be in the conversation. I really, really, really think it is so interesting that we have not solved the problem of thought. We do not understand how consciousness emerges. So there's a ton of fear-mongering about, in reality, what's going to happen when AI emerges. And there's a ton of people asserting that large language models are AI and like they pose some kind of danger. But it's interesting if you go back and look at the history when Alan Turing and other mathematicians and early programmers were talking about the potential for computers and for a type of machine intelligence, there was like a leap that happened where science fiction was developing, and suddenly all these ideas are being hashed out in things like iRobot and stuff. But there's a disconnect between what we are actually capable of programming, what we understand. Like, we can program computers to do certain things because we understand the process by which they need to be done. And then there's like a science fiction leap to, and then they are going to become intelligent. But there's a fundamental gap. There's a question that is unanswered, which is, how do humans think? And if we don't understand that, we can't program it.
Well, and like, it's so
yeah.
interesting how we project, like in fiction and in real life, how we project that onto machines. I immediately thought of our friend in our group Discord shared an article or a screenshot of a headline actually the other day that says, ChatGPT caught lying to developers. New AI model tries to save itself from being replaced and shut down. And it's like that. There is so much in there that is absolutely not happening because, well, A, for clickbait reasons, A, but B, because we can't help but associate what we're calling AI with consciousness.
Well, humans
it's-
want to map these things. Like, we want to understand it in the way we understand it.
You can stick googly eyes on a ruler and call it Harold. And if you do that for an hour and then you snap that ruler in half, people will gasp because they've already started to project personhood onto a ruler with googly eyes. And I think that this is interesting.
R.I.P. Plank from Ed, Ed, and Eddie, gone too soon.
Rip to the real one.
I think that this is so interesting as we proceed and we talk about when people are dehumanized and when people are instrumentalized, because there is a fundamental disconnect between machines that cannot think and are not independent beings, that we project humanity onto them that they do not have because we have not solved the problem of consciousness. And then in a lot of media where that problem is actually solved, we immediately see them being created as a slave race almost. And it is interesting to me because I think something that a lot of people don't realize, you can humanize a ruler with googly eyes named Harold all you want, but when you actually give consciousness to something you've created and it starts to be able to disagree with you or do things that you don't like, suddenly a lot of people's tolerance for that goes away, a lot of their human affection goes away, and then we see the same thing we see with people who are frustrated with refugees or frustrated with the homeless.
Exactly. I was just going to say, like, you want
Yeah.
to be human. Welcome to being human. I'm going to be racist now.
Yeah, like there is a disconnect between the things we project humanity on that don't actually have humanity and the things that are sentient that we don't treat as human.
Also, we haven't talked about a major, extremely major thing with the Puppet Master. A major Motoko Kusanagi thing with the major.
Motoko Kusanagi.
Motoko Kusanagi. I Aliced that so hard.
Thank you. Thank you.
A major Kim
What do you mean,
Kisaragi.
Alice? That
We're a queer trans podcast. We did not talk about the fact that the voice actor for the Puppet Master is male and is speaking in a female body.
There's an extremely gender thing happening here, which is cool. I think initially it was intended to be shock value, but like as time has progressed, the image has also gained nuance in a way that I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's this like idealized female form that is strapped to this shell, which is a blue-eyed blonde woman with a bust and is just strapped to this table, and then a masculine voice comes out of it and startles the people who are interrogating
This is Tom Weiner in the dub. I don't know if he's done other stuff, but he is incredible in the dub. Like, this is the best performance in the dub to me. So
the original is also has the same like a very distinctly male voice tone to it. Uses ore. It's very good. You know, they do it.
There's a purposeful disconnect there, and I think that is really interesting.
Really is. I do want to pay one more heed to one line during this segment before the escape sequence, which is, why do you think Project 2501 ran to Section 9? I don't know. Maybe he's got a girlfriend there he has the hots for.
he does.
The most ham-handed foreshadowing, but yet it is perfect foreshadowing.
Every time I see the Major, ooh,
I gotta escape my enclosure.
I would build myself an artificial body and get hit by a truck so I could try and date the Major.
Yeah.
100. Or merge consciousnesses.
Which is dating.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to talk about the escape sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Tagusa has clocked, other people came in with the Section 6 people. Isn't it Tagusa?
Togusa.
So as Togusa is clocked, other people came in with the Section 6 people, and they are in active camo, and they pop smoke, and they are getting the fucking Puppet Master. So talk to me about this sequence, Alice.
So the sequence is great. Basically, everyone is playing a different game in this. So Togusa clocked it, and when he calls the Major has obviously already clocked this and is getting ready to fly out. Bato is doing his own thing, and they talk about it in a way that's cool. So so the smoke pops, Puppet Master's missing. We know that they grabbed him. They're calling security. They're locking down. Togusa is outside. There's something, and I want to talk to you guys about this. When the chief is there, he calls for security to close the security doors, and he doesn't hear a response.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the chief is in on the plan by the Major and is faking this? Because they want this guy to escape, so they don't have to give it to Section 6.
I'm not sure.
So they go into this in the series a lot, where he is always in on what they're doing. I think in this one, he doesn't know what the Major's plan is.
Yeah, that was the sensation I got, and it was almost like a plausible deniability thing.
Like they
there
hacked
was no
his
way,
radio so he couldn't call for him to close the shutters. So
yeah,
because
there's no way for him to accidentally tip off Section 6 that they're onto them if he doesn't know what they're doing. Like, that was the feeling I got from it.
So they blow the door, they blow the wall and get out into the alleyway.
And they
are
get in a cool car.
They get in a fucking DeLorean with a sick ass cyber back screen. It's great. They get stopped by a truck that gets in their way, and Togusa shoots his revolver. Why is the revolver great? Thanks for asking. You can put tracker bullets in it. And so he lands a tracker on this thing so they can track the car.
I love later that Bato is still giving him shit about using a revolver, and is like, if you'd used an automatic, you could put 2 trackers on.
Bato bullying Togusa is such a staple. I love them.
It's so good.
They are so little bro with each other.
Something I really like that they do in this movie is everyone, even the villains, are competent. Section 9 just has a slight edge. They are just faster, they are smarter, they always can get around what's happening in a way, but they
and like
do
the
lose.
Major said, they didn't hyper specialize. The fact that Togusa is the one who clocks this is fantastic because it's gumshoe shit. And it's because they poached him from the police force and he's not reliant on all this optic stuff. He calls in and he pulls the footage, but like he trusts his intuition in a way that I think that the others maybe couldn't.
We also get a cutaway where Ishikawa has been working this the whole time and has made great headway and is like, oh, they've kind of known what they're working on this whole time. There's a cool chase sequence. The Major, the car is split and the Major knows which one to go to because a whisper in her ghost. Is that whisper a latent hack from the Puppet Master Go?
No, I think she just has extremely good intuition. I want to talk about something in the sequence that's very funny to me because we talked about Bato bullying Togusa, which is that Bato and Togusa go for the other one while Kusanagi goes for what ends up being the real one. When they get there and they find out it's a decoy, Bato just steals Togusa's car and speeds off.
He leaves Togusa to arrest the guys and then just leaves.
Can we talk about that? The car is driving. It gets to a checkpoint Section 9 has set up, which also Section 9 always be setting up checkpoints. And they just start blasting these guys.
This one guy, I wasn't entirely sure if the guy had been blasted or if he had exploded, but one of the guys is like turned into a fine red mist.
Anti-material rifle to the head.
Salsa.
Salsa.
Hey, symbolism's back.
Hey guys, we got
Symbolism's
symbolism.
back.
You want to talk about it?
I want to talk about shooting up the sculpture of the Tree of Life, including the word hominis on it.
Oh my god, everything that happens. So the Major tracks the Puppet Master's car to a flooded district in an abandoned area, and where he
Abandoned
is-
museum, to be specific.
yeah, it's an abandoned like natural history museum, and so like everything
This
has
is
been
what makes
cleared
this
out.
movie, right?
Yeah.
This is the movie. This entire
This is the sequence
sequence
every single person who's seen this movie remembers from this movie, for sure.
And so it's been cleared out except for the things that are literally in the walls. Some of them are fossil impressions, and then one of them is the Tree of Life that has all the different species on it. And the Major lands on the roof of this place. Thump, really heavy, cracks
shout
the
out to
ceiling.
helicopter pilot who gets like 3 lines and just kind of
He's
exists.
a real one. He's a real one. He drops her off and is like, okay, I'm in the area. Are you sure you want to head in on your own? And she looks in and identifies that it looks like just the car is parked in the empty hall, but she picks up that there is active camo on something much bigger crouched over it. And she says, shoot out the ceiling. And so much like the rain disturbing optical camo, the falling broken glass disturbs the optical camo and reveals, Alice, what is this? Because apparently it's not a Tachikoma.
It's not a Tachikoma.
I need all listeners to know that in the notes for this, Niko describes this as the Tachikoma fight. Now, I'm so mad. This isn't a Tachikoma. A Tachikoma is a very special little child that I love deeply, and you cannot put on this. This is a tank. So,
Okay.
in the Ghost in the Shell franchise, they have tanks. Tanks are all on legs anyway. You might remember this tank from Pat Labor 2's intro.
Yes.
Oh.
This is like basically the same mech that's like these also look just like the ones that are in like the elevator at the end
This
of
is
Pet Labor 2,
the
right?
308A2 R3000 tank. It is a 6-legged tank which has a cannon hand and machine gun hands. It
And
had
a,
active camo.
and a fucked up little grappler hand. And I just want to say that to Nico's to slightly defend Niko, even though I also made a smarmy note in the outline about this. It is like a spidery tank thing, like a Tachikoma. The major, huge difference to me is that Tachikomas are AI piloted and autonomous.
Okay.
And this thing is piloted by a dude. There's a dude in there.
Okay.
Yes, Tachikomas are AI driven, but you can ride in them and
They
take
have
over
a
the piloting.
backpack that you can sit inside.
A backpack where I keep my human.
Yes.
But
I love
but
that
keep this
shit.
one in your memory for the other ones because tanks with a human pilot are kind of a thing in the series.
Neat. Okay.
So this is the obvious mecha, right? This is the one. This is the mecha. So what does she do? Now, this is very important, and we're going to talk about the guns in this because you know why this movie owns? It has a lead gun designer. So one of the things, and I got this from the art book and I wanted to share with you, is the gun page from the art book that talks about how despite the manga basically making up guns, they use a lot of real world examples for this.
This is porn to Alice. Alice,
oh my god, yeah.
This page is stuck to the next page in Alice's physical book.
Hey. It's mechanical gun drawings, but okay. First off, I just want to talk about how insane it is to deploy with an additional barrel for your rifle to hot swap. So she gets down and she's like, oh shit, this is a mecha. I brought a gun to shoot people and cyborgs. She opens her thing and hot swaps in a different barrel because she's going to use high velocity rounds and she needs it to last. And it's this awesome sequence. And during this, guys, the exact moment I screamed in ecstasy when she pulls out the burning barrel and tosses it into the water because it's overheated. Y'all.
It's really good. It's teams.
So normal about that. But no, this fight's really cool because all she is doing in this fight, because she knows she can't beat it, is running it out of its machine gun ammo.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She's running behind pillars. Again, things that inspired the Matrix. Bullets ricocheting into pillars and chewing up them. There's this really cool scene where she is running. She like throws the rifle because it's dead so that the person shoots at it. And then she runs the other way, but she like catches on the ground. There's a lot of little like human motions, I like to call in this. She's not perfect in this fight. She's very good, but she has some human motions into her that
and she's also just like, she's full like panic mode. Like this is like such a powerful Kusanagi character moment because she is so desperate. Her curiosity about what makes the puppet master leads her to jump onto the tank and try to manually pry open like the hatch to the cockpit, which destroys her body. It's I mean, you know, they really drew the fuck out of this sequence.
It's
Holy
incredibly
shit.
cool.
It's like talk about 5,000 frames per second.
Yeah.
The motion where her arm is pulled off in slow motion and you just see the gears falling out. It's so good. But, you know, she can't just actually defeat this. You know what defeats this? Your standard issue big gun. Bato shows up with this fucking cannon that he's carrying and just
He had to go get it. That's why he's
drills
late.
into this.
He
I
had to
do-
go get it.
From his personal collection. So this is one of the things that comes up a lot, which is like Major Kusanagi does not like asking for help ever when she is on target to something, and she wants to talk to the puppet master so bad she can't wait 5 minutes for Bato to back her up.
Yeah, she is intent on this. So
There's also a
Bato-
stupid sniper helicopter thing that's happening, but who gives a shit about that?
Don't worry
That's
about
so
it.
dumb.
But we'll have to talk about the helicopters because they whip ass, but we'll get there in a sec. So yeah, Bato disables the tank and they get the guy. I guess he's just fully dead. They end up using him later, I guess, as a conduit. Anyway,
They use a cyber brain.
The penetrator, by the way, the gun that Bato uses is also on this page that Alice shared. I just want to talk about how it's an over-the-shoulder mounted stock because the gun is so fucking powerful. If you tried to like cock it against your arm, you'd probably blow your entire arm off.
It literally is it's a tank cannon that you carry on your shoulder. So only a cyborg like Bato, who used to be a army ranger, could do it. I also want to give props that the only reason he stops firing is he gets a jam. If you notice, one of the shells doesn't
shell was
fully
twisted,
eject.
yeah.
And that's the only reason he stops shooting this thing.
That's an automatic for you. See, if Togusa was firing, he would be dead.
So they open the new girlfriend from the bag. Fresh out of the bag
So
girlfriend.
they extract the puppet master, and Bato is like, "This is a bad idea, but I'm nothing if not a stan of the Major," and helps set up a direct connection between the
are
Major
his
and the
favorite
puppet.
guy.
Women are his favorite guy.
So she talks about diving. Diving is in the net sense of diving into another system. And in this case, she's diving into a cyber brain. So she's diving
If you've ever
into
seen Hackers 1995, the part where Johnny Lee Miller is surrounded by revolving equations is diving.
That's diving.
This sequence fucking ripped shit. This is sci-fi of all time of talking through the Major's body talking like the voice is allowed, but the Major's isn't or something. It's
the
so
Puppet
cool.
Master basically switches bodies and is speaking out of the Major's shell, and the Major is responding, but Bato points out that he's lost connection. He can't hear the Major, so he is only getting half the conversation, which ends up being integral to like the final kind of twist or open question of the movie.
And also locks down Bato. The Puppet Master backhacks Bato so Bato can't unplug
Yeah.
the Major.
And also, during this sequence, 3 oppositional helicopters have moved into the area. There are snipers on board. I think that this is really cool mech stuff. One, because the helicopters are incredibly cool and they unfold wings when
great.
they are hovering.
Yeah.
It's incredibly fucking cool. And also, the snipers on board give up control of their central nervous system, their breathing and heart rate, to the machine of the computer so that they can snipe with optimal efficiency, which is an incredibly
crazy.
fucking cool thing.
And they do snipe with optimism.
Well, they lock on, but the Puppet Master interferes to give time to finish having the conversation with the Major. And this conversation that they're having is the Puppet
What is
Master's
it?
talking about existence. And the Puppet Master puts forward that they are only lacking 2 things: the ability to die, the experience of death, and the experience of reproduction.
But
not copies.
How could an AI and a cyborg reproduce? Neither of them have functioning parts.
I
As
have
the
a
Major
great
talks about.
anthology from Smut Peddler called Sex Machine, and that's kind of a reference document that anyone can purchase. If they,
So Puppet Master posits that if
Brian's
they
so over me.
if they were to combine consciousness, that they would create a new thing. This is so good because Kusanagi's like main objection, like she actually seems kind of down. Her main objection is just that she wants to remain herself.
Ooh.
And Puppet Master says, "Your effort to remain what you are is what limits you."
Can we do the
Yo.
Can we do the whole back and forth, which is Kusanagi says, "You talk about redefining my identity. I want a guarantee that I can still be myself." And the Puppet Master replies, "There isn't one. Why would you wish to? All things change in a dynamic environment. Your effort to remain what you are is what limits you." In this
That
essay
just
about
superimposed
transgenderism,
over a pride flag. Transgender
I'd like to
pride
talk
flag.
about transitioning and how you will not stay the same self when you transition, and that's a good thing. And your effort to remain who you are is limiting you. Please reach out if you want to talk about it.
Definitely, it has the energy of everything you want is on the other side of fear. It has that energy. Like, yeah, it's really good.
And then we're kind of left in the dark as to what exactly happened because
The snipers fire.
The snipers fire. Bato breaks control and manages to get his arm in between the bullet and Kusanagi's brain,
But not the Puppet Master.
but not the Puppet Master. So the Puppet Master's shell is destroyed.
The ability to die
Yeah,
by
congrats,
putting
dude.
itself in a shell.
Just platinum to the human experience.
speed running. Kusanagi's head still gets blasted off. It looks pretty
But
cool.
the cyber brain is still fine, but
Yes.
the full head gets demolished.
My understanding is that the bullet passing through Bato's arm changed his trajectory, and that's what
Yes.
severed the head instead of,
That is the correct read. Anyway, the snipers have to leave, and they're like, well, we got the one we wanted. Kusanagi was a +1, you know?
job done. Everybody hit the showers.
And then we get one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the eyes open and the slow zoom in until you realize that you are looking through the eyes of Kusanagi's temporary body, and it's into a mirror across the room. We're in Bato's safe house. He's brought his wife home, but his wife was only a cyber brain. What do you do with that? You buy a black market body.
You gotta buy a black market body, and unfortunately, the black market's filled with weirdos who make like lolly bodies. So that's where we're at.
It's not my type, as Bato says, and the Major says it's pretty young.
the only man who matters.
Section 9. Arabaki is so like black pilled, like morality gray. He just says it was a terrorist refugee plot. nice and neat. We're done here. No worries. It's fine.
I really love the secret nature of Section 9 doing this shit. We see it a lot in the series of like, terrorists probably. Yep.
Who cares? This final line read, and now I can say these things with my own voice because now I am neither the woman who is known as the Major, nor am I the program called the Puppet Master.
You're something
And where
new.
does the newborn go from here? The net is vast and infinite.
Yeah, the net is vast and infinite, but also the city is vast and infinite, and we get another fantastic pan shot from the kind of outskirts where Bato has his safe house, where there's still some greenery, fully into the completely concrete and light core of this cyberpunk city as it sweeps over it, and we kind of exit the way we came in with just like incredible music and this crazy sweeping shot.
Yep.
Like it's really cool. It is really cool. Well,
It's great.
Any closing thoughts, gang?
Whammin.
Whammin.
Whammin robots.
Bato,
I'm including
MVP.
Togusa in my list of whammin.
just because of the hair, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that, you know what? Whammin.
Whammin.
So often we are just reduced to saying nothing but whammin'. But there is one thing we have to do here at the end. Alice, what is it?
We gotta rate these goddamn Tachicomas.
What if I just did that? Like, you call everything an Autobot, or you call everything
every Pokemon is a Pikachu. Every
Everything's
character in
a
Halo
Gundam.
is Master Chief.
Doing it for the whole year in the shell, just so you know.
We gotta rate them. So the spider tank is the most conventional mech type device that we see, but there are a ton of great machines otherwise. We have two different varieties of really cool helicopters, including the one with wings. We have a lot of cool cars. I love the vans that they drive. I like the garbage truck. There's a lot of great design here. But the key question that is going to underpin all of the Year in the Shell, shells, are they mechs? So, bearing all this in mind, Alice, how are you going to rate these mechs?
Well, I'm gonna come out at the top of the year in the shell and say shells
Congratulations,
are
happy
mechs.
Pride.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'm not gay. Shells are mechs. So I'll start with the spider tank, the TO8A2. I love this. I love all of the weird spider tanks. We'll get into it more when we get into SAC, but I really like the one in this. This fight is so iconic. When I think of mech fights, I think of the Major on foot fighting a giant tank mech. We see it in this series a few times, but I love it so much. I love when you have a person-sized thing fighting a mech. It's very David and Goliath. And this one is so visually appealing, so iconic, so, sounds weird, realistic of a fight. Like, she is using actual tactics. She is thinking this through, but also not really thinking it through. And there's no, like, convenient end to this fight. Like, she does lose this fight against the mech. It's only Bato that saves her, and I really like that. As for the shells, I love them. I love the lore of the different shells, of the cyber brains. Specifically, Major Kusanagi's shells are just so great, and I love watching them get designed. Are they anything great? As of this one, not really anything too cool happening yet. Like, we get some discussion of it, but at the end of the day, they're just normal cyborg bodies, and we're told, oh, they're really super soldiers. And we see it in the Major sometimes, but like, do we see Bato really flexing his cyborg? He is struggling to push people in a market past him when he's running, and I think that does like play into you kind of see the shells do stuff, but really, I'm basing this just on the TO8A2, which because of that, I do have to give this what might be one of the lower rankings because we are just rating the mechs. And this one is a very solid 5 out of 10. Brian?
I totally agree. 5 out of 10. I think that the tank is pretty cool. I agree that the shells are mechs. I I don't think that they're like my favorite kind of mech. Like if you've listened to this show a lot, like you have a decent idea of like what my sensibilities are, and like I really like them and I think they're cool. I have loved talking about this and I will love to continue talking about this. They just don't super hit like the on a mecha rating scale for me. The tank is fine. Tanks are not usually my super known thing either. But in like the further on in the franchise, like specifically the first season of Standalone Complex is going to do a lot with the ways that shells mediate our experience with reality and how that can be interrogated and problematized. That is going to have a higher rating for me because of the way that gets talked about. But for now, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever. On a mecha scale rating for On the Shoulders of Giants, I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, I think I came out just a scooch higher. I'm going to go with a 6, only because I really liked the wings unfolding on the helicopters. I know they're not technically mechs, though. The whole system where the snipers like breathing and heart rate is
hardwired into it.
Yeah, like that is wildly cool. It's some of my favorite shit, but it is skewing more out of like my favorite mech shit into my favorite cyberpunk shit, right? So there's a little bit of overlap there, but then there's also a little bit of this is just not a mech, you know? But I agree. I think the shells are mechs because for me, and we'll get into this more, but because consciousnesses can be transferred so that the shells can be piloted by different people. That, for me, is one of the distinguishing points. And so the exchange moment where the puppet master speaks out of Kusanagi's shell is, like, an incredible moment for me. Like, these are mechs. But I think my most transcendent moment with appreciation for the shells is when the Major's arm is tearing as she is wrenching at the hatch. The skin separates in 2 layers, and it separates in this kind of thinner outer layer, and then it separates in the stretchy inner layer. And I look at that every time that happens because that's such a fine attention to detail. And for me, it makes me think of every time I've taken apart some kind of machinery or I've pulled apart some kind of plastic or
ripped your arm off.
Yeah, every time I've ripped my arm off
Every
and then
time.
gotten top surgery to replace
time.
it with gun tank arms.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it has an incredible verisimilitude. And like, for me, that's like a transcendent part of the design. But yeah, it's a 6 for me in terms of mechs. I'm excited to see where this goes because, as I said, I haven't seen anything else Ghost in the Shell. I'm excited. So with that, we're going to head to the break, and then through the medium of a game, we are going to get even more into figuring out what our distinctions are between guys and mechs.
Oh, dudes and
break.
bros and mechs.
Hey guys, Alice here. Thanks for listening to On the Shoulders of Giants. We're really happy you're here, but if you know anybody who might be interested, we'd love if you share our work with them. If you are enjoying what we're doing, maybe send us a message, or what would really help us out is if you leave a review online. Really, a lot of the algorithms will push people down if they don't have reviews, so it really helps if you just go and write something on the internet. Heck, we might even read one on the podcast if it's really nice and makes our hearts go doki doki. So if you could do that, maybe do it, and thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back from the break. I'm going to need audience participation, so I have made...
Hi, audience. Hi, fans. Hey, shout out to our Lithuanian fans. Still waiting to hear from you.
Yeah, shout outs. So I'm going to need one of you to open. I have made a tier maker for the game.
Oh, okay.
Which I have called Degrees of Guy to Mechness.
Fuck, this is so
Alice,
good.
you need to share your screen because we need to work off of one. And I have a note sheet that I have to reference. Otherwise, I would do it.
Okay, and I'm going to take a pre and a post shot.
Okay.
This is such a good idea.
Yeah, so I have put together a game that I call Degrees of Guys to Mechness. And it is a tier maker. I have put 26 characters on this tier maker from all sorts of different media. Yes, so I made this a public tier maker, so we will have the link on our website so you can make your own tier makers and share them with us and see where you fall.
Okay. I already have thoughts.
Hey, do we have 2 hours?
We're gonna try to move through this quickly. It is, I think we're gonna go gut reactions because what we're trying to find out is for the group, to what degree are certain characters just some guy or fully mech? And
Can you
I
give
have
us the
several
rundown
stages of
your
this.
scale?
Yeah. So starting at the top, where there would normally be an S rank on tier maker, is that's a mech, baby. If we just 100% are like, this is just straight up a mech, no bones about it, that's a mech to me, toe to tip, that's a mech. That goes in that category. The cowards option right below it, basically a mech, but I have objections. So like, if you're like, this is a mech, but I can't quite put it in the fully that's a mech category, it goes here. In the middle, we have kind of giving mech. I love Alice hovering over one of them.
Saw one.
We have kind of giving mech where it's like, yeah, I guess this is sort of there or kind of in between, or then we just straight up have which is just like, I don't know. And then at the very bottom, we have that's just some guy. And now you'll note here, I didn't make this between mech and android because a lot of these characters are straight up androids or cyborgs.
Yeah.
That is settled. What I'm talking about is to what extent you believe this person fits your idea of what a mech is, regardless of scale or origin, or how much you're like, that's just a person. That's just a guy. That's not a mech. That's a guy.
Okay.
So this is the category we are going from. I have 26 characters for us to sort into these tiers, and we are starting with the major.
So this is a collective OSG first take.
Well, it's collective you two, because I think I have a strong idea. But I'm interested to see what you two say, and I'll make my case.
Okay.
The major, that's a mech, baby.
Do you agree, Brian?
I agree. I originally was like gonna put it on the second one down, but I think that we just had this discussion, and I've gotta just stick with the convictions that we just put together. So that's a mech, baby.
All right. The second one we have is Rouge from Metallic Rouge.
I have objections to this one.
I'd say basically, but I have objections.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
I would say final episode Rouge is a mech. Up until that point, no.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't think she was intended to have different.
Reached
whereas
the
the
level
shells
of
can't have different
consciousness
people.
of the puppet master yet. She is still stupid. And
that's the decisive.
I'm gonna say too stupid to be considered at the majors level.
Okay, that's not what we're ranking here, but okay.
No.
I forgot. I actually legit forgot that Rouge was stupid. Yeah.
She's so dumb.
Best character element. Our third character is Battle Angel Alita. So I don't know how much y'all have interacted with Alita. Alita is a cyborg whose head and chest were found in a garbage dump. When her body was rebuilt, she became a bounty hunter and tried to unearth her lost past. As a complicating factor, at one point in her many subsequent adventures, an entire line of Alita replica units are manufactured off her model. So what are we thinking?
I think this is some guy.
That's
You think
just
this
some
is
guy
some guy?
to me.
Yeah.
I no. So what I know of Battle Angel Alita and having read it and everything, there's a better version of this called Sakano, I think, where a girl is turned into a super weapon. Alita's just an android. There's no soul in there. I don't think she ever gets to the point of feeling like a person. I think it's just some guy. Where are you on Battle Angel Alita?
I'm willing to go because the complicating factor for me is the replicas of her that are manufactured. That to me speaks to mass production models.
She's a standing man emoji. You're right. Okay,
yeah,
I can see
they make standing man emojis based off of her, but that is my only complicating factor to not just say that's just some guy. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think she's
Okay.
Our next
We'll take
character is Adam Smasher from
Adam Smasher?
Cyberpunk.
Did you write something for all of these people?
I wrote something for most of them, and then later I just kind of just have wiki links. I got lazy.
Yeah.
So Adam Smasher is an enforcer for and project of the Arasaka Corporation. He was originally a mercenary who lost most of his body to a rocket blast. I just want to say, on the wiki for Adam Smasher, they say he was turned into a mush by rocket blast, which is kind of a fucked up way to describe a guy.
Yeah. Anyway.
So Arasaka offered him the choice of dying or being mounted to a full replacement mechanized body. So I think in a lot of ways, Adam Smasher is in a similar situation to the Major, but at the same time, we never see anyone else use Adam Smasher's body.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling?
I would say kind of giving Mech. I have a grudge against Atom Smasher, just like a petty grudge, because he stomped on a DILF's head in front of my eyes, and I was really attracted to that man. Anyway, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna
We
say
can't factor in personal beef.
I want to say the same, but in the way that I don't think Atom Smasher as a sociopath, psychotic monster has lost enough of his humanity that he's still technically a living being, but like more robot than man in every way.
I will say this is a trope we're going to run up against a couple times, I think, which is the idea, and it's foremost in the cyberpunk role-playing system, and then it is discussed in Cyberpunk 2077. The idea that the more you mechanize your body, the less you become connected to human experience. That's obviously a major part of Ghost in the Shell, but it is pathologized in an interesting way in cyberpunk typically, including in the diagnosis of cyberpsychosis, which there's a lot to unpack with that. But it is interesting, that tends to be the trope when it comes to full body replacements and the more mechanized you get. And I'll be interested to see what media we get into that kind of challenges that, and to what extent you can separate that out when we are looking at these kind of things as mechs. The next character I have is probably a little controversial. That would be Alphonse Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. So Alphonse
This is a mech.
lost.
That's
Sorry.
a mech, baby. That's a mech.
Alphonse lost his body in an alchemical ritual he and Ed were using to bring their mother back to life. Ed was able to make a sacrifice and recover Al's soul, which he bound to a suit of armor. I will say I am in total agreement on that's a mech baby, not the least of which because later in the series, a couple characters literally wear Al or hide inside Al.
That was what I was going to mention.
Yeah, I
Al
think
also
that's
talks
really
about
fascinating.
how like it feels like he's moving the armor and it's not just him. Like I feel like it's very much like.
Well, and that's one of his major character things is how the suit of armor mediates his experience with the world.
Because in his
and
mind,
that's
he's still a
Mechs to
small
me.
child.
Yeah.
And he approaches the world in that way. That's a mech, baby.
Our next character is RoboCop. Alice, this is Alice
That's just some
immediately
guy.
just put him in some guy category.
That's just some
What
guy.
is your thinking, Alice?
I hate RoboCop. It's a funny movie. The concept is really, really stupid. Like, I get it. I get that they overrode his memories and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just some dude on life support they're letting shoot people in the dick.
Yeah, I would say I would put it in kind of giving Mech because of the way that the reconstruction altered his experience. Again, the way that his experience with the world is mediated by the fact that he has a new body.
Mask and everything. Okay, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would put him in kind of giving Meg, especially because he's been kind of instrumentalized into a tool of violence, specifically of state violence. I thought I'd throw him in for fun. Our next up is General Grievous.
I'm gonna say basically, but I have some objections. What do you think, Brian?
I think I agree with that.
Because there is a burnt, ruined husk of a body.
Yeah, so he is General Grievous. I'm going to be Star Wars pilled for a tight 30 seconds. There are two conflicting backstories for General Grievous. One of them is way cooler than the other one. The coolness level of them has more to do with why he has lightsabers, but in both of them, he is his cybernetic enhancements are an encasement for his shriveled, horrible alien corpse.
It is kind of containing him in a similar way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a mech. He's piloting the shit out of that. Nobody would give yourself 4 arms if you weren't piloting it, right? I might be wrong about this. I believe as an alien, he already had 4 arms. But anyway.
I do think that's an interesting complication to think about, though, as we move forward. It's like, to what extent is your body different now?
Where did you fall on General Grievous, Niko? I want you to give your pot.
I'm kind of giving mech, but I'm good with basically a mech, but I have objections because of what Brian said. Also, I haven't watched the prequels. I just threw him in because I thought it'd be funny. I knew Brian would know about it, so you've fallen into my trap. All right, the next thing we have is Cybermen from Doctor Who.
I don't
Are
know
y'all
shit about
familiar
these
with
guys.
the Cybermen? Okay,
I'm not Doctor Who. No, I know this is weird. As a 30-year-old white woman who posts on Tumblr, I have never consumed Doctor Who.
You know what? That's so brave of you.
Because of Super Hulak. And
That's so fair.
They did that specifically to stop you.
That's so
what stopped
fair.
me.
The Cybermen, reading from Wikipedia here because I didn't write it. This is the point where I just have wiki links. The Cybermen are a fictional race of cyborgs from Doctor Who. They are spacefaring, and they forcefully and painfully convert human beings or other similar species into more Cybermen to populate their ranks. The process removes their emotions and personalities. So when they are mechanized in this way, they are stripped of their emotions and personalities.
Yeah, my opinion on this is basically a mech, but I have objections because there are some exceptional Cybermen who either retain their humanity in some way or another, or just like have other special things going on. Because the thing about Doctor Who is they can't fucking let the Cyberman go. Like there's 900 episodes about the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
So there are some exceptional Cybermen that I do think are mechs. Generally, though, they are just cyborg slaves. I don't think that's necessarily mechs.
Where do you fall
I
on
would
this,
put him in
Niko?
kind of giving mech. I should have put the Daleks in here because I forgot that the Daleks are basically just mechs. Because they're just like a wretched little amoeba guy. I'm good with kind of giving mech.
I have no opinion, so I'm going off of you guys.
Okay.
All right, the next one we have is BT7274. Alice has immediately just put him into the mech category. This is the mech. I guess I have to say the mech from Titanfall. This is BT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, while BT has a personality and he's piloted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Both by the AI and the pilot.
Okay.
Yeah. So BT has an actual mech pilot, but then also has an AI that has specific directives. And one of the major turning points of the Protocol 3 from our intro is from Titanfall, and it is one of the protocols that he adheres to. So I brought him in just because I have a couple more examples on here, but like this is a mech with a personality. So I did want to challenge from the other direction and go like, to what extent does a mech just become a guy if you put a personality in it?
So do you want to consider this in kind of honor of the rest of this as without the pilot consideration? Yeah. Okay.
I guess so.
No, that's nothing. It's a
Well,
mech.
then it's just if it's just a mech, it's just a mech. But outside,
That's,
when it doesn't
to
have
me,
its
that
pilot,
is just a mech.
well,
Much like the next entry.
Yeah, I wanted to raise it so we could talk about it from the other direction of this is a
I
mech
totally
and it's had a
understand why it's
personhood
here.
put in it.
I think even without a pilot being involved at all, I think the personality and the core of the AI is enough to count it as piloting.
Okay. The next one we have, Alice will probably recognize. This
The
is
Gundam F91.
Well, I hope I got the right image. I was looking for the XS Gundam with the Alice AI on board. I may have put the wrong image. Is this correct? Alice, are you okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a Gundam that has an AI in it. This is another one kind of like BT in the sense that the AI at one point does override and pilot it. ALICE stands for the Advanced Logistic and Inconsequence Cognizing Equipment. Have you met a more tortured backronym than that?
Gundam is so bad, you guys.
From Gundam Sentinel, get excited, everybody.
Yeah, and apparently she was initially installed in the MSA 0011S Gundam. And so she's considered to be the heroine of the Gundam Sentinel photo novel. So there's a protagonist, but most of the apparently significant accomplishments of the S Gundam are from her.
Just for the audience, this is on the schedule, so I guess we'll talk more about this in detail later, but
having broached this subject because I started reading it, just full opinion, I'm going to say basically, but I have some objections.
Okay,
this is an interesting complication.
Is my thought on it because of the way I've seen the ALICE system so far in this, like they're playing it when this says heroine, it's played as the heroine. It is played as the main female hero, and it is piloting this. It's very much not the mech itself. The Gundam can't be piloted. It has a cockpit, but I think it's a mech, but I have objections just on
Okay.
how we might have to revisit this after we finish the novel. That's what I'll say.
I defer to your objections, though. That's kind of the wrinkle I wanted to introduce.
It would be the first time Gundam had a non-human pilot.
I don't know. Our next character is the Iron Giant from the Iron Giant.
This is a guy to me.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
just some guy. This is a guy. You can't swap out the Iron Giant's personality. Well, while a child may have influenced his actions, the child did not pilot
And
the Iron
head
Giant.
trauma.
They had head trauma.
Yeah, he has CTE. The Iron Giant OSG official stance is the Iron Giant is just some guy. You could meet him at the bodega.
He also plays for the Washington Commanders. Got those head injuries.
Okay, the next character we have here is the Arbalest from Full Metal Panic, including the Arbalest AI. So, things to know about the Arbalest AI. The Arbalest AI is the reason that only Sosuke can pilot the Arbalest. The Arbalest AI also, at one point in the series, becomes advanced enough to activate the Lambda drive, which is kind of the special MacGuffin drive that they have in Full Metal Panic that is usually only activated by human pilots.
Oh, he looks cool.
Oh, I love the Arbalest. It's a kit I desperately need to get.
He has a little knife.
Yeah.
Well, the knife is big for him.
So yeah,
so for
Alice, you
me,
have more experience here. Fill us in. What are you thinking?
it is very much this AI has such a personality, but also the AI can only really kind of move the Arbalest to get to Sosuke. It needs a pilot to move, and because of that, that's a mech baby.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm open to that, yeah.
It needs its co-pilot to fully function, and I think that is such a thing. Like, the Major's body wouldn't move without the Major's ghost, Al wouldn't move without Al's ghost, rest in peace, and BT wouldn't move without BT's AI.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas the Alice system is not necessary to pilot that one. General Grievous his shell could be used by anybody who is also a creepy, freaky alien. So for me, this is a full mech.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. We have Bang Bravern on the schedule. I think Bang Bravern would be a very good one to have on this, but I didn't know enough and I
That's
didn't
the
want to
thing.
spoil.
This can grow.
We can add more characters to this. We can. So the next thing we have is there isn't a canonical appearance, so I just used the book cover for Ancillary Justice. This is the one we discussed earlier. This is the Ancillaries, the Justice of Torin, Breck, these characters from this book that Brian and I have read. In this setting, the ship AI has ancillaries, which are captured civilian bodies that have been augmented to function as bodies for the AI. So they function as the crew.
I cannot tell you how Ann Lucky gets the absolute maximum mileage out of this concept across every page. These are mechs to me. I think specifically of the way there's a sequence where the main character is basically left with only one body, and she picks up a dumbass, and the dumbass falls off a bridge, and she has to use her body to create traction so they don't both die. It's mechs. That's a mech to me.
That's a really good pull. I would say basically a mech, but I have objections. But that pull, she's doing mech shit with that body.
Yeah.
Question. Was this, so I was in the bathroom, but I could still hear you. Is this one you said is a great audiobook?
Yes.
Yeah, this is what Brian was saying was a great audiobook.
Okay.
You should check it out. It is a fantastic book.
Remind me, notification, thank you. What's this next
up,
one?
we have Curie from Fallout 4.
Oh.
Curie starts out as a nurse kind of robot from the standard...
what are these robots called? Mr. something?
Mr. Gutsy.
Mr. Gutsy.
No, Mr. Gutsy is the military one.
Yeah,
Miss Nanny is but the nurse one I think is a specific type. I should have
Miss Nanny. It's just Miss Nanny.
Oh, it's just a Miss Nanny. It's a Miss Nanny frame.
We gendered our robots.
We got robot genders, yeah. She starts out in a Miss Nanny frame. She is a scientific robot. And then throughout the course of the series, you can eventually find a brain dead synth who lives in a physical body. and you can transfer Curie's mind from the Miss Nanny frame into the brain dead synth, overriding.
That's Mechs. If
That's
Kusanagi's
kind of
a mech.
mech to me.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, so since this is why I wanted to open this question. Since in general in Fallout can be made brain dead, and then this procedure happens, but it doesn't seem to be a common procedure. It seems to be an exceptional procedure.
Yeah, I would say synths on their own are not mechs. Specifically, Curious situation makes her a mech.
Here's why
I would say basically a mech, but I have objections.
I would
Alice,
say
how are you feeling?
basically a mech because at its core, nothing can pilot Curie or the synth. Like, it's literally just like if I were to transition my body, is my thought.
That's the difference there. I think we should be clear about this too. I think the difference here with the major two is Ghost in the Shell has the ghosts, and that is what makes them mechs. There's nothing about there's nothing interrogated about like what makes Curie a person.
Yeah, I don't think Fallout really interrogates that, and it's just cool new body.
That is a lack.
Well, and that's because Fallout can't interrogate anything. But anyway, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I
Are we
agree
okay
with
with
that.
basically? But I have objections. Okay.
Yeah. Next, we have specifically Legion from Mass Effect, but in general, we have the Geth from Mass Effect. So something that is, I feel really bad. I don't want to spoil things for Brian, but also, so the Geth
It's like a 20-year-old franchise at this point. I don't think it's fine.
The Geth are a consensus consciousness, and they mount themselves to frames, which are the physical robots that you fight, to do things in the world. But the Geth are a hive mind, basically.
Yeah.
And Legion is interesting because Legion has a bit more of a distinctive personality. But yeah, that is the situation with the Geth.
I would say basically a mech, but I have objections. I think the thing that makes them basically a mech is the fact that like a Geth Colossus and a Geth Husk are technically the same thing, just piloting different machinery.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're not. Maybe that's just a mech. Maybe they're just mechs. What do you guys think?
I would say they're just mechs because the consciousness hops in and out of these so easily. Legion is actually exceptional in being kind of its own thing, but for the most part, Geth as a whole, I would just say are mechs.
I think I would say I agree with that because the Geth consciousness is what the Geth is, and that lives in its weird cyberspace servers. And everything from the ships to the frames is just being piloted by the consciousness. And while Legion develops its own personality, it is still part of the whole. And the assumption being that if any of the Geth were not in a long-standing war with the Quarians and the Quarians hadn't, done what they did to them, that maybe other Geths would have had personalities. And in fact, that's why the Quarians got scared of them, is because they started developing that. So yeah, I think it's mechs.
Nice. All right, I'm putting this one here because I didn't actually feel like it was worth doing a whole lightning round. I figure we can touch on it here. This is Minoru's construct from Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So in the course of that game, you unlock the souls of sages by doing their temples. You've got the 4 standard ones, but Tears of the Kingdom introduces the Sage of Spirit. You find her in the Underdark, basically. You find her in the realm beneath. And she was a technician, and so you can assemble this construct body for her, and you can summon it, and Link can ride on it and mount different weapons to it. But technically, it also contains the soul of Minoru, who is dead.
Not only is this a mech baby to me, it's Gunpla. You assemble this thing out of sprues.
Yeah.
Like
It's both piloted and has a spirit in it, and you are literally building a mech. That's a mech baby.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it in there. But yeah, I have wanted to talk about this for a long time, basically, since I played Tears of the Kingdom. I love the Minoru construct. I think it's fairly
so cool.
divisive, but it is incredibly cool, and you can mount all sorts of stupid shit to it. Oh, all right. Next up, we have Mettaton from Undertale. How familiar are y'all with Mettaton?
Extremely.
Never played Undertale. The audience is annoying.
Oh, you've been called out by Alice, which means
you
nothing.
like Undertale too.
I do.
No, I was talking to Niko.
Yeah, I do. I played it once. It's been a little while since I played it. So Mettaton, major character, fourth boss in Undertale. It is a robot canonically with a soul, whose body was built by the inventor Alphys. And so it starts in the kind of squared off robot body with the little wheel, and then is transferred into the more humanoid glam Metaton frame. And then I believe in Deltarune or in a different version of Undertale. I don't know. I think there's like, you know, the Gundam gets the rebuild and gets like a cape or whatever the fuck. Metaton also has that happen.
I deeply love Metaton. Metaton is one of the funniest characters in any franchise. However, I think this is to me. Like, it's not just some guy, because it is a built construct. It does hot swap its consciousness, but it's mostly just kind of an android.
Yeah, I would say I think Metaton, first of all, Metaton would never tolerate anyone else piloting the body. And Metaton so embodies that body that, like, yeah, I can't imagine anything else. The transferability and the fact that Metaton has a soul is an interesting complication, but yeah, I agree with Alice, why don't you fill us in on Chobits?
Fuck you. Chobits are just some guy. There, I said it.
Why do you think that?
Chobits are just android girlfriends you have to finger to turn on. Yes, over the course of Chobits, they develop a soul and a personality, but they're just some guy. They don't hot swap. They don't change consciousnesses. It's just they kind of do, but I don't.
I would put them under because there are several situations where the personalities are overwritten or the personalities are moved between frames, which gives me a little bit of that portability of soul and consciousness that I like from the major, but it is not, it's typically used for plot twists. It's not like an integral part of the Chobits experience. If you just bought one, like, that's not something you would engage with at all.
There is a complete difference between the fully actualized, I am dealing with what it means to be in existence in the major, the stupidity of Rouge, and whatever the fuck each Chobits is doing. Because those, I know we said Rouge is stupid. There is not a smart Chobits out there.
Yeah, there isn't one.
So I'll go with I'll agree with you on that.
Right. Also, they're not called Chobits. I believe they're called Persocoms. But
I don't
anyway.
give a shit. Come at me, anime fans.
All right, Alice, here's another anime that you have a lot of deep knowledge about.
What?
I see you, Jake Sully, touches you gently on the head and ties our braids together as we kiss. Is becoming an avatar a mech?
I think basically a mech, but I have objections. That's my instinct.
I'm going to say kind of giving mech because there are actual mechs in Avatar.
Oh, you're right.
That's sort of what's happening here, but it is also problematically racialized in a way.
Here's what I'll say. I think basically
mechs can be racist and still be mechs.
Because they hot swap the consciousness to the point where Jake Sully gives away his human body.
Sully. It's Sully, by the way.
Jake Sully.
Jake Sully. Jake Sully. That's how she says his name. I see you, Jake Sully.
Oh, you're right.
Mild racism.
Oh,
I think
I'm not a racism.
So, you guys have seen Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which is a great movie, right?
No.
So in Avatar 2, The Way of Water, there's more mechs, but specifically, I'm going to spoil this. Hey guys, spoilers for the greatest movie ever made. So the Marines in the first one who get fucking slaughtered by the natives all had to back up their consciousnesses in the generational ships, and they implant them all into avatars, and they all get tattoos and are just like Marines, but in avatar bodies, and it's the most bro shit in the world, and I love it.
Considering the first Avatar movie was just Pocahontas with blue aliens, this has some troubling implications.
Hey, there's also whale hunting. It's really great.
Anyway, the next character we have is Galvatron.
Where's Kyle?
He's not here.
So Galvatron is Megatron who was rebuilt in a different body. It is a Transformer. I think Transformers are an interesting space. We considered covering Transformers as a nod to Kyle, but we ended up going with Mechagodzilla, which I think was a better idea. Because to me, I'm going to come out controversially, Transformers are just some guy.
I think Transformers are I think Galvatron specifically is just some guy. There are Transformers that are they're not piloted. They're piloted by other smaller Transformers, but they are piloted. Galvatron is just not one of those. And
Hey,
so
when-
yeah.
When Shia LaBeouf rides in a Transformers named Bumblebee, is that piloting a mech?
No.
Because
Okay.
Bumblebee could just eject him at any time, like the James Bond car.
God,
Like,
he should have.
Also,
He should have done it.
I
First
think
movie.
I think if you're sitting in the controversial opinion, I think if Shia LaBeouf is sitting in the car Bumblebee and Bumblebee transforms, it should just crush him, Akira style.
Those movies would have been so much better.
Agree. They just turn him into a paste scene one. All right.
Yeah, I defer to
Brian
on this
has
I have
strong
a lot.
opinions on this next one. Alice also has strong opinions. I've never seen Battlestar Galactica, but we have Cylons.
one. Okay, you have a Centurion. I need fans to know this is just a stock Centurion, which
Okay.
is important to this question.
It is important to this question. Also, people should watch Battlestar Galactica. Yesterday, I became 2004. I became pretty sure that it's the greatest television show ever made. Yesterday,
Wait. For fans, what season are you on?
I'm on season 2. I watched the and this is why I have this answer actually to this question. I watched the what is it called? Revive Ship parts 1 and 2. Those are some of the finest episodes of television I've literally ever seen. Anyway, a Cylon Centurion is just some guy. There are Cylons I think are mechs.
I agree.
The human form Cylons are mechs because they can die and download their consciousness into another identical body.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. I didn't know what kind of image to source. I will accept that's just some guy. I was referring to Cylons
If you
generally.
could throw 6 in here, we'd put her right into that's a mech, baby.
6 is a
Okay.
mech for sure.
Okay. Data from Star Trek, Brian. Brian, you are a data correspondent.
I'm a data correspondent. I'm
Why
gonna
did you say Star Trek correspondent? Why do you have to say data correspondent?
because I
Data.
love data. I love data so much.
You're very data coded.
Data was on your wedding cake. That's why you're the data correspondent.
Data was on my wedding
I
cake.
forgot about that and I love it every day.
Normally, if it's an android, I would say that's just some guy. There is one episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Data accidentally downloads the entire mass memories of a dead race into his body and becomes piloted by like 900 people at once. And that is why I would upgrade him to eh.
Okay. Yeah, see, I was like, I think Data is just an android, but then I was like looking at some episode synopses and I was like, what the fuck are they doing to my boy?
Would have loved to see the Borg on here right next to the Geth, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's a good
yeah.
point. Again, we can add to this.
Yeah.
Would you
the next-
consider the Borg mechs in the way I would? I want Brian's
I would
opinion
say-
on this.
I would put them one
I don't
lower
care
than
about
the
yours.
Geth. Oh, wow.
I would say
Okay.
basically a mech, but I have a
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say kind of giving mech.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Our
what's
next
this
character is Nineball from Armored Core. You know this man. You've seen him. You've
We've
met him
seen this
in the
man.
first Armored Core. A fun fact about Nineball. Nineball's pilot was part of the Human Plus program, which is when they synthesized him into his mech. So this is another situation of like, I
Nineball
think...
failed the game so badly that he had to start a new file where he's Human Plus. That's how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Exactly it.
So Nineball sucked so much he became the greatest of all time, which is, I think, inspirational to all of us. You can suck so much you come back and become iconic. But yeah, the Nineball mech started as a mech, but there was this Human Plus process. What are y'all feeling?
Man, I think this is a mech, baby. I'm going to say something controversial. Just like the composition of the body here is just an anime mech. Like, that's just a mech to me. There's like, it's kind of unavoidable.
I will say, trying to find an image, I ended up having to go with the Gunpla version, and this is the Nineball Seraph. So
Yeah.
it looks a little different, but yeah.
My thought is because of how Armored Core engages with the swapping of mech parts and everything, I feel like this is a mech because Nineball is piloting it, even if they are a former
Also,
person.
I think that Armored Core as a series gets a lot more interested in this question and defends itself as being a mech, especially in Fires of Rubicon, where you are you're sharing the mech with Air, who is an artificial intelligence, and B, your personhood is constantly called into question because you're kind of a barely operating living corpse being.
So cool.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing we have up, this is specifically Cade 6, but I wanted to refer to all exos from Destiny.
I got
So-
you, Ghost. Ghost is going to be so proud of me today.
We all
Yes.
immediately walked in for Ghost.
Do you know why his name is Cade 6?
No.
No.
So all exos are names and a number. The number is the iteration of this body. Cade 6 means Cade has died 6 times or downloaded himself into a new body 6 times. These are mechs to me.
Greetings, Frank the human boy.
How did you almost know my name?
I have approximate knowledge of many things.
That's incredibly cool, actually.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with Destiny. The lore is really interesting. The guns feel really good. I don't want to play Destiny, though.
Wait, so was Cade a consciousness before their first body? How does
I
this work?
believe, and this is where Ghost may no longer be proud of me. I believe exos were once human.
Yeah.
So long ago that it doesn't matter. But
Then yeah, I'll
From what I
agree.
remember reading, like a major DLC is about the origins of Exos. So yeah. All right, Alice. The next one we have is the Peace Walker Basilisk with an AI in it. The AI was supposed to be based on the boss, I believe.
yeah,
Is the Peace Walker Basilisk?
we
a
be
mech
putting
or
women
some
in soda
guy?
cans.
Is it just a woman in a soda can? Is it just some guy?
Well, considering the fact that Peace Ortega does pilot this, it's a mech baby. That's it.
Yeah.
Even if it was boss in a jar, this is a mech. This is a mech to me. The way that Metal Gear interprets what a Metal Gear is, like you have, and we saw it a lot in Rising, there were just drones, which are very specifically different than the mechs that this is a mech, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm down with that. Lastly,
Oh, controversial.
we have GLaDOS.
GLaDOS.
Portal.
GLaDOS.
So interesting thing to think about. GLaDOS did originate as Caroline, originated as a human person. Her consciousness was forcibly put into the Aperture Science facility. GLaDOS does, however, have a couple of different forms throughout the show.
Yeah.
Or throughout the show. Throughout the
show.
games. Including notably in Portal 2 being mounted to a potato. What are we thinking?
I think this is a mech. I think as of Portal 2, GLaDOS is a mech.
I think with the lore from Portal 2, learning the backstory, I think that's what changes
Well, and
it to
also
me.
I think the fact that she gets, not only does she get transferred into a potato, but her old body becomes piloted by Wheatley.
Yeah. He
And I like
swaps
that
into it. Oh, yeah.
She is pulled out, and it's very much the entire facility is an extension of her when she's connected, and that disconnect really proves to me that GLaDOS is a mech because they then pilot the facility again at the end.
All right.
So yeah.
I'm down with that. Well, there we have it. We finally solved the question, and I hope given each of us a better idea of what we think when we think about characters that are androids or AIs, or they've got a lot of different other labels. But if we had to just categorize them as a guy or as a mech, I think we have a better idea of what our definitions are there. Well, that was our game, everyone. Thank you for playing. Nobody got any points, but...
Hey, listeners, you should also fill this out and
You
add us.
should. I'll tweet
Yes.
it. Or sorry, I'll skeet it.
I will give you my hard opinion. If anybody moves Chobits any direction other than down, please at me directly. Thank you.
How do you move Chobits down? Didn't we?
We put him in because of Niko. If anybody moves Avatar,
creates a secret 6 category that just says garbage trash that doesn't deserve to be talked about, then I could believe that you could put Chobits down there.
We would put too many things down that way, though, that Alice brings to the pod, so we can't do that.
I'm gonna posit that Alice won this game because she was streaming, and and though she did a very good job being fair, she could have just put things where she wanted.
That's true. Alice, you get a participation trophy for fairness.
I'm being very nice and taking feedback from others. I don't have to listen to either of you. I could have just made this list the official list, and you would have had to live with it. So I could have piloted this podcast in the direction I wanted, but unfortunately, as we have established, we are all sitting together in OSG Studios, which is in the body of a giant mech that we all pilot together.
That is true. Y'all, there will be some lore updates this year. Get ready for that. We are podcasting from inside a mech.
We don't have a flash transmission because our lines are dead because the Puppet Master hacked the podcast, unfortunately.
The Puppet Master did hack our podcast. I was going to pull up real quick, and I don't know what I did with my stupid fucking phone. Well, we did get an Apple Podcast review back in October, which was very nice, I think from user ZipZap. I don't know if anyone could pull that up quickly, but they had very nice things to say about the show.
I remember what they said. They said their subject line was very good, very fun, and the message was just that having a Friends at the Table quote in the intro alone is going to grab me. And that's true. Shout outs to Jack, who did say the most mecha line of all time, and we did have to put it in our intro. Yeah. So
thank you for writing that review on Apple Podcasts. Even if you just want to leave a shit post or a mech you want us to rate, if you leave us a review, it materially helps us, and also it's just nice. So thank you. All right. And that's this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we discussed Ghost in the Shell. You've had a little bit more time to think of something other than whammon. Any parting thoughts?
I've said this since I first watched Ghost in the Shell, and this is before I proverbially cracked the egg and became trans. And I said, the minute we have full cybernetic bodies I can create a cyber brain and throw myself in, I am signing up first generation. I don't care how janky it is. Put me in the hot major shell so I can do tactical cool shit, barrel rolls, kicks, all of that shit. And I think that that's the lesson, is that, if you really identify with hot swapping your cyber brain, maybe you need to grab a portfolio, go out onto a deck for 3 to 4 hours, and write thoughts on gender.
Maybe you need to go as a gender thing.
That was a deep pull.
And I will say, as someone who has an iFixit anti-clamp for repairing iPhones on her desk, Alice, I would never let them lock you into getting repairs at a facility. I would help you be repaired.
Don't know if I trust you dealing with my cyber brain, but why not? I've never seen the brain
Overrides
matter.
Alice to like better anime.
Tattoos right to repair underneath all of my skin panels.
Yeah.
That's my final thought. If I had a cyborg body, I would not want it to be owned by Apple.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And to any of our listeners, if you have a cyborg body and you're currently in hock to some sort of corporation, DM me on Blue Sky, and I will see about getting your cracked screen fixed.
The real OSG hard stance is that we have a duty to jailbreak our audience.
Yeah, we are going to jailbreak you.
Do not buy your cyborg body from John Deere. That is our official stance.
True.
Or Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah.
Bass Pro Shops. I don't know why I keep saying Bass
Pro Shops. Agusa.
All right. Thanks for listening. Pilots, remember you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, and non-pilots can send general questions or feedback to the same address. You can also catch up with us on social media. The links are in the description for updates and more. Make sure to check back in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing Gunhead. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
It's just a whisper that I hear in my ghost. I love you.
My love for you, like the net, is vast and infinite.
Aww.
That's beautiful.